say something nice so that, you know, you get the Dhamma, the full Dhamma.
We're recording right now. But because you guys were saying about fasting, and I was just gonna mention because I was talking to Parker earlier on about hunger, and saying that like between like for me today and yesterday, like yesterday I had like one meal and it was like probably like 800 calories or something like that, and then
Guys,
I
hold
just,
on,
like,
I'm
didn't
gonna
eat anything else.
sorry to interrupt. I'm just gonna say hi to my girlfriend for a bit. I'll be right back.
Should we wait? Anyways,
I can talk
okay.
about something else or whatever comes
Should
up. I
should I
guess.
say the? Well, I was just gonna say like for the fasting bit. I don't know. It was interesting because the sensations of just like hunger or whatever it is, like the I would even say hunger. I would just say like the whatever that feels like when you haven't eaten anything, when you're like kind of low on food or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of guess to the point, and maybe it's because of the practice. I mean, obviously, I would guess it's because of the practice, you know, of being satisfied, where it was just like that sensation. You know, there wasn't really a disliking of it. I didn't dislike it at all. It was, I actually kind of liked it. Like, it made me feel like light and nimble and energized and kind of unbounded. I don't know. It was kind of weird. It's just like, I think nimble is a good word to use. It made me feel like just good. And then once I ate, it was kind of like, okay, well, we've broken the fast, and kind of back to that ordinary. And so I don't know. In my head, I was starting to think like, damn, I kind of like being in that state of like not having eaten more than like this dichotomy of like eat, get hungry, eat, get hungry, eat, rather, and that's what actually Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about is that we aren't necessarily trying to like satisfy our hunger, but we're actually just we're actually you know, not being hungry is the idea. So that we could stop calling it hunger. We could just call it sensation in the body. Because I think you do have to have that satisfaction component though to see that clearly. Otherwise, you know, it might be paired up with a lot of unwholesome thinking that cause unwholesome feelings, and then, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. I didn't realize how much I was comfort eating until I began to fast for the first couple times, and I really experienced that deep hunger. And suddenly, I remember I just started fasting like a couple years ago, and I remember at the time, I think it's actually only a year and a half, but I remember being like, "Fuck, dude, it's been like since high school, you know, or maybe younger." You know, I feel like certain people have a higher metabolism, and no matter who you are, everybody has a higher metabolism when you're younger, right? Especially if you do sports or anything like that. And so I remember there was other times in my life when I was like younger, had a better or stronger, faster metabolism. And so I remember kind of getting hungry, like that deep kind of hunger, you know, basically before I could feed myself, when I had to fucking rely on the cafeteria or my mom or my parents. That was the time when I was like, you know, would actually get hungry, you know, and when I would eat, it was because I needed to eat. And once I began to feed myself, I mean, there's no point to like, you know, if you have that drug of food, like, why not, you know, load up. And
well, here's one way
you know,
you can look at that though, because that's actually really super valuable that you know that, because actually I was talking about this also with Parker, which is like the idea of that none of what we are, none of like the unwholesome thoughts that we have are new, that cause like these unwholesome feelings, like kind of bad feelings or whatever it is, like wanting things, you know, when we feel kind of incomplete or we don't feel good. I was referencing this like quote that my mom used to say, which was like, there's nothing new under the sun. And I think that's like from the Bible or something like that. But basically, basically what I was pointing out was
Yeah.
directly that what you're pointing out, which is that you recognize, oh, when I was a kid, it was like this struggle to get this food, and so there was more to it than just the sensation of hunger. It was also like, you know, questions about, am I going to survive this? And so therefore you have that baggage. But then you could come now as an adult, right? And you could say, oh, that's an old friend. That's an old friend. That's something that I kind of ignorantly or delusionally picked up when I was in elementary school. Isn't it time to grow up now? You know, that
I
I don't
think
need to
even
run
though
off of that old programming anymore.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? So like when you, and for
Yeah.
me, what I was saying about like the old component was that when I recognized, oh, that's really old. Like that's just an old friend. That's an old habit. It really sucks all of the head for me. I don't know, maybe, and Parker agreed with me on this. He said, like I said, like it kind of sucks all the weight out of whatever that unwholesome feeling or thought was. Especially since I'm also calling it a friend. But like, it's like, yeah, this has been with me all this time. I've been doing it all this time, and it's a way of kind of a 10-year-old to do something, and it's kind of silly. It's kind of a joke, really. You know, it's just like now I don't have to continue doing that anymore, right? Because here we are, like 20 years later.
right. Yeah, no, I mean, when I also realized there's a lot of things, if you fast for long enough and you do it enough times, you begin to uncover different lessons and deeper lessons. One of the things I remember learning was that, you know, like I always had some kind of drug or something in my life, right? So when I was younger, it was like video games. And when I, you know, got into high school, it was like weed and alcohol. And as I got older, I, you know, did other stuff too. But that, and then when I, you know, completely got free from all that, I still had something in there, and that was food, right? So ultimately, what I realized is that when life is kind of scary and unknown and out of control, people tend to have a balancing effect. So, you know, if you don't have drugs and if you don't allow yourself food, that need for comfort is going to come from somewhere else, you know? And then what happens is as we kind of have discipline over these more basic desires, like, you know, like a nymphomaniac or, you know, desire to control your suffering through sex, that was what we would call like a lower desire or something, you know? Well, it could be higher, but really, if it's about selfishly
But this isn't
pain.
what we're discussing right now kind of the ordinary way of handling things, like, oh, I'm lacking in this department, let me go lack in another department instead. Like, isn't that kind of just a really ordinary,
Yeah.
typical uncontrolling of the mind? Yeah.
It's
So
an
we don't-
unconscious pattern of like so many people.
yeah.
The
Not us,
trend that
though.
I've noticed is that as we like move along that path, you know, we end up
we can interrupt that whole process from the very beginning. We could just say, oh, look at, I see this restlessness about this thing that I don't have comfort over anymore. That's an old habit. That's an old pattern. That's an old friend. Wow, I'm really satisfied, really glad I saw that. No worries, everything's fine. Start talking to yourself, start rhyming to yourself, give yourself rhyme and rhythm. I got nothing but rhyme and rhythm. And I start talking to myself, and I'm satisfied and everything's fine. No worries. And then we're good.
Like there are certain things that they have, like, they're not really worth it, you know? Like the most extreme example would be like if you do like hard drugs like meth, right? You get a short-term high and then like for a week you're crashed and you're just destroyed. So there is better, more wholesome ways to balance that suffering. And that's really what the spiritual practice is about. It's kind of like the epitome of, you know, no negative karma associated with this practice that balances suffering. You know, on a lower level, we could say that like the most destructive ways to balance suffering, that's what it really appears as, is a kind of like unconscious instinctual pull towards something that makes you instant gratified, you know, whether that's like Game of Thrones or like your girlfriend or, you know, drugs or food, right? There's different levels of things that are more destructive than the rest, right? Everybody has to eat food. That's kind of like a middle ground, right? You got to eat anyways. So why not just eat a little bit more, you know? And then it kind of, and then like as we get higher, right, there's different levels of things that, you know, at the bottom, it's very short-term instant pleasure, probably of a very high degree. And then like long instant crash too. And then at the mid-level, it's kind of like, well, you feel kind of good. You don't really suffer for a bit, but then, you know, you have diabetes, or you have like, you know, like for me, I had a lot of esteem issues. Like my eating issues went mental for me. It became like neurosis. And then, you know, like on a higher level, if you're doing like meditation or wisdom or anapanasati, like there's no negative outcome to that. Like you're literally attacking the source of suffering at the source, you know? And so, yeah, that's like a path of progression that I see a lot of people on, you know, and some people just don't ever recognize what it is. They just end up unconsciously, habitually, like, you know, stuck in their patterns.
I feel like it's pretty, it's shockingly easy, because Buddha says, go to the forest, go to the foot of a tree, go to empty hut. If you're in an empty hut, or in the forest, there's not hamburgers laying around. There's probably no syringes laying around. Probably no girls around. So it's pretty easy to get away from that stuff. We got a couple of guys that just joined here. Robert, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing? I don't think I know your name in the top right corner here for me.
Oh,
Now you just switch, actually. I'm Keyshawn. I don't think we met before.
oh, hi. Oh, are you talking to me, DJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm pretty new here. I've been actually watching the videos for some time now, but I haven't actually really joined in any of the Skype calls. So I just thought, hey, you know what? I'd hop in for a bit. I've been practicing for a little, you know, while. I suppose it's just a moment, you know, at a time, but you know, I've been enjoying the practice. Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to kind of hop in. Yeah, and getting
Have
kind
you
of more
spoken to
involved with
Dhammarato one-on-one
response.
before?
No, I haven't. I've just like I haven't gotten around to it. Like I've spent a lot of time watching the videos, and then like I watch a video and then I just do the practice, and I'm like so satisfied and like happy with just practicing the anapanasati. So yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff.
That was me
There you
today,
go,
watching videos and then getting
Yeah.
satisfied and feeling really good.
Yeah,
So
it's really
we're on
really
the same
great
page.
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alex,
Hey, what's up, guys?
How's it going, man?
It's going good.
Really?
Yeah, I want to tell you guys a little bit about what's been going on and see what your thoughts are, particularly you, Keyshawn. But anybody else who'd like to chime in, please feel free. But I just decided to I think I've told some of you, I just decided I would take baby steps, and because I was going at it real hard, with a lot of willpower. And it's interesting because I was looking at Bhikkhu Buddhadasa today, and I saw that he was talking about the 5 aggregates, volition being one of them, and I didn't know volition meant will. And they said something about once you see the beginning and the end of the 5 aggregates, you are able to have some kind of wisdom or something. I didn't really, I didn't hang on to the word, but you're able to see more clearly. And I've noticed that that's something that happened for me. I was able to see the beginning and end of will. It will only take me so far. Couldn't, because at some point I just got exhausted. I got so tired and I wanted to give up because I didn't think I could sustain anything. Will couldn't get me there. So I gave up. I got really fucking defeated, discouraged, and was literally about to quit this practice forever, forever. And then I just started I just woke up one morning and I just started to take a breath and start there. Just, okay, start again. I'm just going to enjoy this breath and enjoy the out breath and this in breath and enjoy this out breath. And I just did that for a day. That's it. And whenever I noticed there was unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome feelings, I would just take a breath. That's all I would do. I wouldn't say, I see you, No, I wouldn't say I see you, Mara. I wouldn't say wouldn't get into all that. I would just take a breath, enjoy that, and then restart again. The next day, I did the same thing. Next day, I did the same thing. Or like about the 4th day in for that now, I've been super consistent with it, which is amazing. And I haven't been concerned about the results at all because I've just been in the process of enjoying the breath when I remember to enjoy the breath, not holding myself to enjoying the breath all the time, but just when I remember, and then acknowledging that as a success. And what I can say is like what I've noticed is there's a natural like progression. Like the more and more I can see myself enjoying the breath and acknowledging the success of enjoying that breath, when I see unwholesome thoughts and feelings, I feel more ready. I feel more equipped to meet those unwholesome feelings and thoughts as a friend. So now I'm saying things like, oh, anxiety? Oh, I can be friends with you. I can be friends with this. I can make friends with this anxiety. I'm literally saying this. I think I found my mantra, guys. I can be friends with this. Like it's like, oh, I can. It's good, and it's really really wholesome. And what I've noticed is just in general, there's less unwholesome thoughts. There's less unwholesome feelings. There's less frequency of things like getting to me. And what I'm noticing, I was reading something up about contact, and I'm curious if this is something that I am experiencing, because what it is now is like I've noticed that when unwholesome, it can be anything. It could be this isn't good enough. I want more. Wait, I was feeling better a minute ago. Where'd it go? Oh, I can make friends with clinging. I can make friends with craving. I can make friends with this isn't good enough. No, this must be good enough. This is good enough. This is good enough right here. And what I'm noticing is like I'll come to contact with that unwholesome thought and feeling, but it like doesn't, it's like I can just be like, ah, hello. It's like I'm opening the door and then
You make a
shutting.
new contact,
Yeah, new contact. Exactly.
a
The
new
new
wholesome
contact
contact, a
is
new wise
enjoy the
contact.
breath. Yeah, enjoy the breath. Or oh, acknowledge this as a success. Um, and then just something like general things that I've noticed is the way that my like experiencing and enjoying the breath, how that's changed from the first day I did it to now is really really different. It's like I've been taking your advice, Keyshawn, to make them more slow and relaxed and enjoy them like as if this is everything I could ever get in this breath. And I've noticed it like it's like a whole like universe. The breath feels like a whole vast universe, and it's just like a very like subtle, air going through the nostrils. It's like I don't need to blow lines like like Keyshawn was telling me. He's like, you don't need to be doing lines in the bathroom. You don't be like, you don't need to be doing that. And I just was like, just like,
Yeah.
like it, and it's like really it's like it does feel like cocaine. It's like a shoot of enjoyment for like I've never done cocaine for the record, but it's like a shoot of enjoyment like for like 15 seconds. It's amazing. And then the other thing that I've noticed is when I do like seclusion sessions and I'm just focusing on the breath, like just enjoying the breath right now, not doing anything else, my body has intense like spurts of energy and like jerks in the body. And hey, no harm, no fault. I can make friends with this too. So that's what I've been doing with that. I'd be like, oh, I can make friends with these sensations. I can make friends with this discomfort. It's very weird though, because it's like really enjoyable, but really, really uncomfortable. I was just wondering if you guys had any thoughts to anything I just said. I know I said a lot, but
What's
Well,
primarily
I
just
don't have
lots of
I don't have a
victories,
lot to
guys.
say other than
Lots of
I don't have a lot to say other than congratulations. It sounds like you finally decided to start practicing correctly. There you go. I mean, I was just talking about this to Brandon, and I think Dhammarato was in the conversation too at some point. But basically, like we kind of do a lot of different practices, or we do a lot of different things before we finally start to practice correctly. We kind of go the wrong way. Like you said, you were going into like trying to maybe
will mode.
And you said a comment, like thing you said was like the baby steps, but actually that's like really the only way to do it. I think by
Yeah.
baby steps you mean, I think by baby steps you mean like doing it now. The
One
only time you
moment
can
at a
ever do
time.
it is do it now.
Yeah.
Just one more
Yeah.
step, just one more step. That's it.
Right.
That's the only way you can do it. So
Right.
that's why I said it sounds like you're finally starting to practice correctly, and then you're also coming in with you know, meeting the old stuff that comes up with friendship and joy, and actually you're correctly changing the mind, because if the old stuff comes up and you just go into I don't like this, that's more old stuff again. It's just another unwholesome thought. But if you come into it with the new material that we have here of satisfaction and joy, then you're changing the way that it's working, and you're coming now into a new contact, more wholesome, and you start to get into a good state, and that's why you're seeing the results that you're seeing. And so I would say that this is like a clear indicator, kind of, or like a clear example of when they say in the sutta or in the Buddha says the Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. That when you were struggling, you just weren't doing the practice. But now that when you do remember to do the practice, it's good. It's gonna be good in the beginning, the middle, and the end throughout.
Yeah.
When you
have
practice
any idea
correctly.
about you have any idea about what the resistance or the uncomfortable thing was, or do you just kind of run into that barrier and then just like stop the practice or something?
Are you talking about the discomfort during the focusing on the breathing verse? I don't know how to say your name. Is that right?
It's just Corey. Oh, it still says verse. I thought I changed it to Corey.
Oh,
Maybe I'll have to change it again. But you said at the end that like you're having a lot of success and things are going really good, but then you were saying that like you do the practice and then you would kind of feel uncomfortable or discomfort, or you would come some kind of like stop. So do you have any idea about what that might be, or have you looked into it or felt anything, any intuitions maybe?
Well, Alex, what do you think the solution is there? Let's hear it from you.
well, it's just same thing. Just I can make friends with this. I could be
Well, what
friends
is
with this.
Yeah. Can you
The
be comfortable with the discomfort? That I think that's kind of like the approach that we would take
Right.
here, is that we see
Right.
this thing here. Oh wow, look at that! I'm glad to see it. Now I can relax. Maybe it's kind of the approach
Yeah.
we take. You know, I can relax around this discomfort. Everything's fine, and then start talking yourself into wholesome thoughts again until it comes up again, and then you do the same thing again.
Yeah,
Keep-
exactly. And honestly, I don't. I have no idea what it is. I've looked into some things. Like I've heard maybe it could be like kriyas, if I'm saying that correctly. Kriyas. Yeah. So but I don't know how much it really matters to actually know what these things are, as it does to just practice correctly.
Well,
I've
you
had
would
that
want to know
before, I
what
think.
you're avoiding. Like you would want to know what's so bad about it, because certain things just have a negative feeling to them. It doesn't feel good to feel punched in the balls, no matter how much you do on an Apanasati. And if you don't realize what you're removing, it's kind of like you're doing it out of fear. There is some kind of block. And so I'm all about wholesome thoughts and stuff, but I like to know which unwholesome thought I'm removing. I like to have understanding and awareness of it. That's just my practice. I don't just go by the same kind of Dhammarato group practices, so don't feel like you have to do that or anything. I just kind of
No, that's
uh,
actually a good point, Corey, because before I met Dhammarato, for about a year and a half, all I did was just focus on the sensations and the feelings that were present and get to know them really well and get really, really intimate with the experience. And sometimes that turned into wallowing in the experience. Sometimes it turned into
right.
um, glorifying the experience. Like, oh wow, there's all this sadness. There's oh my gosh, all this stuff is coming up. That's great. I'm on the path. Oh wow, I'm processing. Things are going really well here. while still being like, you know. So something that I like, that I think this has helped, like how this practice has helped me in particular, is to counterbalance that year and a half of intense looking at the garbage, you know, getting to know what the garbage looks like, smells like, feels like, tastes like, all that, right? But at the same, it's weird, Corey. I don't have this resolved yet, bro. I don't have this resolved, but what I've heard is like the most simple way to this in this path is dukkha-nirodha, dissatisfaction and the relief from dissatisfaction. And people can get stuck for years and years and years in the, oh, I haven't known my pain long enough. I need to keep knowing my pain. I need to keep it coming. I need to make sure it's coming. I was afraid actually for a long time that if I didn't, that if I tried to make myself feel good or feel better, I would be like making problems for myself. I would be making the path longer, actually. But it's interesting though, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, like intuitively, you just know you need some balance. You need something other than. There's definitely a difference between like understanding things, but then it's sometimes if you like, you're very well aware of what these feelings are, like you've been doing the work into them. Sometimes that it's not really any known feeling. It's just kind of like a black unknown confusion. And even if you look into it, it's like it doesn't really. It's like a limit or a barrier, you know. And it's
right.
Even if we try to look into it, yeah. So to some extent, it's not like there could have been anything there. You know, it could have just been some kind of blankness or void or confusion or a limit. And, you know, yeah, like I definitely don't support rumination. I definitely don't like the idea of ruminating. But, yeah, you know, and like I don't know how long it takes, whether it's 3, 6, or 12 months or fucking 5 years. But at some point, like, you know, it's not really wise to kind of veer from the path, you know, like in the beginning, when you're building up this kind of platform, like it's been like 4 days, you've had so much results, you know. So at this point, you know, there's no reason to like jeopardize it with like maverick tricks and trying new things and experimenting, you know. It's about like building a platform in the beginning, and then later on, I didn't really want to talk about it too much. I was just kind of like curious if it had a negative feeling to it or if it was that black unknown. I don't know what that is, but
I would actually encourage you, Alex, to investigate it, even though we're saying, oh, like, you know, the practice is not to stick your hand into dukkha, stick your face into it, and, you know, all that type of stuff. But I would encourage you to investigate it from the standpoint, from the high perch of satisfaction, and that's when you can investigate it at it most clearly, and that's when you can really see what's going on, anyways.
Exactly, so, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, like Corey. I think I have investigated it because at first this feeling, at first glance, it's like, oh man, this is really uncomfortable. I can't deal with this. Okay, thought one, right? Oh, okay, I can be friends with this. All right, keep going. Wait a minute, there's enjoyment in this. There's actually some feelings of pleasure. There's like going throughout my whole body, the energy I've never experienced. Okay, it's enjoyable and uncomfortable now. So I think I was investigating it because I wouldn't have been able to see the nuances. You know, a lot of times we're just like, oh, that's terrible, that's awful. But I was seeing that that's not the case.
It's a really weird phenomenon. Every one of us would think that bliss would be super addictive. You know, we'd think that like, oh shit, I'm experiencing bliss. You'd think that would naturally compel you to automatically do it all the time. But that's actually not the case most of the times. Like a lot of people, I don't know, we could maybe say like
feeling bad already. You already have a different addiction. So
yeah. So I mean, in a big enough population, who knows what the percentages are, you know, but there's definitely, you know, some people are more leaning towards feeling good all the time. And for them, they get lost in the bliss states, and other people like, you know, they can't allow themselves. Yeah. So, but it's just always been an interesting point for me because it's like, oh, wow, I experienced this amazing thing. Oh, why don't I just do that all the time? Shit. But actually, I haven't even really looked into that a whole lot because, you know, if I did, maybe I would. No, I think I did at one point. And it came down to some kind of addiction or, you know, like It was like something I was like, well, if I'm addicted to it, if I have to do it all the time, it's just going to cause issues. And so even if it's nice to be blissful, I'm not going to want to be blissful all the time. Then I'm just going to be suffering and desiring something other than the way things are, you know. Ironically, that makes things more blissful anyways. So yeah, it's a great path of discovery to be going down, you know. It's not like we're digging for landmines. We're like digging for bliss bombs. And every time we find one, we're like, oh, I just got blown the shit out of. I feel so good right now. Just so blissful. So it's definitely a fun path to be on. And, you know, the rewards are really great.
Alex, by the way, you kind of mentioned, you stated something in a way that I feel like maybe we could point out, that when you do have something that I guess you know contacts you in a negative way, I mean, there is a physiological response in the body. You know, chemicals are dumped out into the body. So if you think about it, like you have the next wholesome thought that produces, you know, good feeling, right? But you still have some, you know, it's like if I had a laundromat at a certain parcel, you know, in real estate terms, like the site could be, you know, polluted. You know what I mean? Like you got to clean it out. So that's where the breathing comes into play. So that next breath is also getting rid of more of that stuff, and the next wholesome thought is taking over into more of the positive feelings anyway. So it's on its way out. You know, you can kind of look at it that way. But Robert, you've had your hand up for a minute. What's up, man?
Yeah, what's up, Robert?
So what I was going to say before was to just, when I first put the hand up, was to just agree with Corey that I think just keep doing what you're doing, keep the momentum going, and do it playfully as well. So something I do a lot is I'll feel like, wow, I've got a really good momentum with my practice going, and then that thought that I want to like keep this momentum up and not lose it will make me more stressed out, and
Yes,
it'll backfire.
yes.
So keep the momentum going and do it playfully. And also, there was something you said, which was, you know, how long have I known dukkha for? Like, have I known dukkha well enough now? And I think a good way to think about that is, at least for me, I feel like the more satisfied I am, the better I actually know dukkha, because the more clarity I have around those sensations and space on those sensations, and I can when I'm less, we might say, like emotionally reactive to like the negative sensations, or attached to them, getting rid of them, that is, like the more we can I can just see a clearer picture, like a higher resolution image of what's there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's
really
the
important.
development of the wisdom, Robert, because the way that Dhammarato describes the wisdom is that knowing where things are headed, knowing where things are going. And so when the mind is clear and sharp, you can see just the slightest gray, you know, like the slightest hint of gray. It's not even worth messing with that, you know. And we don't even need to go down that path. I know where that's headed. Let's go into another wholesome thought here. Everything's fine. That's okay too. This is okay too.
Yeah, I've noticed. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I've noticed what you're talking about when I do get a lot of momentum up, and the practice is going well, and I've been peaceful for a long time. What you just explicated is exactly actually what I was experiencing earlier today, because I had a lot of momentum with my practice, where like negative sensations, I don't even need to practice gladdening the mind or throwing them out and replacing them, because they just they just don't even faze me really. It'll arise and it'll just pass away on its own. And that's really cool when that starts to happen. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
That's awesome. I love that you said that, because I think that was actually something that hit me early on. That was something that made me discouraged, that when I experienced all the success, I would then get a thought of like, I'm tired. I can't do it. I don't know how to keep this up now. Like, I don't want to feel bad. Well, that's unwholesome right there. And then it starts cascading. But the whole thing is, can this be good enough? This is good enough. This must be good enough. Earlier today, I felt like I had this moment where I felt so freaking good. I was walking and I was like, oh man, I really like this. And I had a moment where I was like, wait, I'm not holding on to this. If this goes, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Let it go. This is good enough. And that was a true moment of wisdom for me, because it was like, whenever those times happen, you know what I mean? It's so starstrucking. You know, you're like, whoa, what is this? Right? And then you want to hold on to it, and it's when you
Yeah.
want to hold on to it that causes worry, causes clinging, craving, and then, you know.
Yeah, you're
So it's
looking
just like,
backwards again, right? We're looking backwards into the past instead of forward into the next moment. It's
yeah,
like that. Never mind,
Exactly.
start again. I'm gonna
Exactly.
I'm gonna rewatch this episode and write down some of the things you've been saying, Alex. Like I can be friends with this, and what was the one you just mentioned?
I'm gonna let it go. That's fine. This moment can go. That's okay.
Yeah, good enough.
It
Good
can
enough.
leave.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
this
that.
must
Good
be
enough.
good enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like an insistence.
There's a good
I've had
recent
it
video
in-
that Dhammarato did. It's like 16 minutes, but he just like kind of says a bunch of those similar types of phrases about
Oh, that's
that you
brilliant.
could maybe incorporate.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've had an insistence on feeling bad. I've had an insistence on doubt and believing in these things. Now I'm having an insistence on this being good enough.
There you go. That's the
That's
new way.
fantastic.
That's what we were saying. Like that's changing the mind. And when you guys
Yeah.
were saying about seeing like oh, I don't want to lose this, like that thought. Like I really like when Dhammarato just says the phrase, "See that one too." It's
Yes,
just more
exactly. Exactly.
See that.
And
one
my
too.
version of that is like I can be friends with this because it's just like, oh, there's no danger here. Okay, that's fine. All right.
Yep.
Ishan,
You know, one of the issues. Yeah.
What was that?
Is that
One of
Corey?
the issues.
Yeah, go ahead, Corey, but I can ask mine later. It's not that important.
One of the things that I noticed is kind of like one of the issues that comes with thinking, like where it creates problems, is in its ability to make us focus on something. Like, have you ever noticed how thoughts come and go, right? If we look
Yeah.
at what that experience feels like, it's like a concentration, right? It's like it's coming to us and then it's going away. But with that, the issue is that it somehow drags us into our mind realm. You know, we're not in the
Yes.
body, we're not in the now. And so the compounded issue with that, you know, the way that the thoughts drag us into the mind, because they all seem so interesting. It's always
Well, the
like, you
problem
know,
there
I
isn't
just,
with the thoughts. The problem there is with the unwholesome thoughts that take us out of the body, that take us out of, the hair now. We can have wholesome thoughts that are, wow, this breath feels really good right now. Wow, the
Yeah.
hair on my skin feels really good right now. You can talk yourself into the present moment.
I just haven't even really understood what I'm talking about, the concept. Like I don't even think it has to do with thoughts. I think it has to do with the way that thoughts appear in the mind, kind of like as the process of thoughts happen. If we don't come to understand the source of thoughts and why they happen and why they create suffering, naturally, just because of the way that, I don't know, it could be a lot of different things too, like evolution, the way the language was evolved, the power of language, whatever. If we didn't have thoughts, we would just have experiences of reality. It would all be these incredibly condensed and multi-dimensional complex. Because if you ever look at the sensations you have in a single day, there's like a million of them. And somehow, every time, we always know what it means, right? So there is some process by which external stimuli comes in through your senses. And it's like, how there's like a million colors between black and white.
Wait,
red
Corey.
and
So if I had Jeff Bezos's credit card right now, I could make a lot of things happen. But that's not the case, and I'm not gonna get rid of thought. We're not like trying to get rid of thoughts here.
We're not talking about that. I'm talking about examining the process of how thoughts occur, arise, and why they cause suffering.
But you're
It's
saying
about
it sounds like you're saying that thoughts and like just the attitude towards the thoughts. It's like let's bring them into friendship instead of like.
Well, I think that's just how
talking
you're
about why
taking
they're
it.
bad.
I'm approaching it in curiosity. It's curious to me why this happens. I examine it because I'm curious about it, not because I hate the thought, not because I want to eliminate it, anything like that. I'm just curious about it. Like, well, curiosity is a weird one because you could be curious about something and be like, nah. You could be curious about something and go with it with the pure intensity of your heart. So curiosity is a really weird one because it's not really compulsion or aversion. It's in between. It's just kind of like, well, this thing is, why is that happening? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? So that's what I'm kind of getting at here, is a sense of curious exploration of the way things are now. And one of the things that I have, been curious about and examined is the way that the thoughts do that. And it's part of the, we're not just talking about one thing here. We're not talking about an object separate from everything else. We're talking about the process of reality, how it unfolds in us as human beings. We go through the world, we experience things through our senses, and that's one layer of data, right? And then on another layer of data, when that, let's say, I think they have Sanskrit words for this, when the information goes from our senses into our mind, it becomes a thought. That's what we're experiencing when we experience thoughts. It's our mind organizing. Yeah, it's our mind organizing this raw sensory data, which, like I said, if you examine it, there's like 1 million and 1 billion combinations of it. But it's amazing that we never feel confusion about it. The sensations always come up in our mind, and we have a thought about it.
It's coming from the old material. That's how we know a tree is a tree. It's because we've figured that out before, and that's the
Right.
old way.
Yeah, and so
Corey, I'm curious. Sorry, Corey. I think we should really just let you talk rather than keep interrupting you. But if maybe this goes in the direction of what you're already saying, could you just answer, what is it that, I'm curious about why you're curious about thoughts.
Because they're always happening. They're problematic a lot of the times, and they create suffering. And they relate to our ego and sense of self, as well as it's like our greatest power and our greatest sense of suffering. So the fact that this mysterious thing of thoughts and mind and words and language just is if I looked at a flower, I could be equally amazed by the flower. But because this thought is much closer to my experience of reality, it's something that I'm more curious about more often. And so I think about it more often,
To me, this kind of strikes me as, it just reminds me of the sutta about, getting struck by the arrow and then wanting to know, what kind of feathering was on the arrow, what was the arrow made out of, who shot it, where does the guy live who shot the arrow, where did he go to school, what's his credit score, how about we just actually work on, taking care of my wound here.
That's what I think this process is. If you understand it, you know how to remedy it, But if you know that the issue is that the mind, we have an experience and we create a thought and then we attach to it and we have
the remedy. It's the wholesome ones instead of the unwholesome ones.
Well, I think it's important. Right. I'm curious. Hey, Corey, what is an example of a thought that causes suffering for you?
There was just one earlier today. This headache. I've had a headache for like 4 hours. It's a splitting migraine, terrible pain headache. And I was just going about it the regular way, just living. You do anapanasati and you're wholesome and you're not feeling it so much. And then suddenly you focus on doing your work and suddenly you're like, damn, this headache's back. What's going on with this thing, And today when I got off work, I was just kind of walking my dog and I was like, all right, I'm going to look into that and see what is causing so much suffering about this thought. And the experience of the headache is pounding in the head. And it's kind of like, kind of like a dulling of my mind. It's kind of like maybe a little bit of confusion too. I just feel scrambled. But it's just a bundle of sensations. There's no negativity in it. And then when I look a little bit deeper, the thought component that is creating suffering is the projection into the future that this headache will never go away. Even though in my higher mind, or I could, examine it further and be like, literally never even heard of a person have a headache that never goes away. But that component of painful or unwholesome or whatever you want to call it, it's like a component of a kind of automatic thought process that, what we desire or what we really enjoy, what feels pleasurable. What is the sensation of pleasure? It's wanting now to always continue. And what is the feeling of pain or suffering? It's wanting now to be gone, to just want to run away from it, So that sensation of like. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
That was pretty much a full thought. I mean, I was just thinking about, when I realized that when I looked into what is the component of suffering, what is the thought causing issues, or what is it that's even causing issues? It's this automatic process that the mind has set up around sensations of pleasure or pain. Pain is bad because the mind predicts that it's going to continue forever, or that it's going to end the life, or somehow damage our health, right? Health is very important to our experience of good and bad. And so things that are going to damage our health or damage our body, and our body is essentially the foundation of health. That's, health can't arise without our body, at least not as I've experienced it. So really coming to understand that there are components to these experiences that are
I
deeper
think
than
that's
the
dependent on
sensation.
how important you think it is, but
Well, I didn't think that
Keep
it's,
going.
it's like
Wait,
a programming,
Keyshawn, I want to say, so Corey, I want to say something to this. First of all, it's really awesome that you're seeing all that. I don't know, like if you if you do this at all in your practice, you congratulate yourself or acknowledge yourself for seeing these things. That's like the first step. Like, it's really great you're seeing that stuff. It's really, really important, because if you didn't see it, if you didn't see what was going on in the mind, or what was going on in your thought processes, or everything that you just mentioned to me, you wouldn't be able to go any further. Like, you have to see it first, right? That's what it is. Like, that's what the Buddhist path is. You to wake up, to see things as they are. So you're seeing things. I would like to offer something to you, or ask you to consider that the thoughts you're talking about, when you say that the reason for suffering is thoughts, that is incomplete, and that the reason for suffering it really is unwholesome thoughts, not absolutely thoughts, not a thought, oh, that looked really cool. Oh, wow, that tree looks amazing. Oh, I'm having fun
right?
time with
It's
all
like
you
this
guys.
layering of thought.
There's no
Right.
unwholesomeness in that. There's no suffering in that. Would you agree? In those kinds of thoughts?
Right. Yeah. Like if my body and brain, if I'd never learned what death was, if I just lived in constant bliss, where would I ever have that unwholesome thought? It's a layering of thought, or it's a layering of concept upon experience. If I never had the experience, if I never seen anyone else with a headache, and if I never experienced death or knew of death, where would that pain and suffering come from? Because like I said, it's not within the experience itself. It's within the mind, adding this concept of it's like a train of thought, and it's like and we say train of thought, really it's just one long thought, but the thought is like, okay, I feel bad, this might continue forever, I might not get better, it's these added layers of like feeling bad, damage to brain, feeling bad, death tomorrow, feeling bad, unhealth, never recover, right?
I think something that could help you specifically. I relate a lot to what you're saying, man. Like, you're very analytical about it. You're like looking at it like it's under a microscope, like you're in a science lab right now. And that's kind of how I relate to it as well, prior to starting this practice. And what I've noticed is,
let's
like,
dumb it down now.
yeah, exactly. Like, really what it is like wanting things to be different than they are.
Mhm.
Wanting things to be different than they are. That right there is the definition of dukkha, dissatisfaction. Your headache, the reason why you have all these unwholesome thoughts about your headache is because you want it to be different than how it is, which you kind of pointed to that because you were like, I'm afraid it's going to be here forever. You're only afraid it's going to be here forever because you want it to be different than how it is. So when you get sick, when you get a headache, when you feel like shit, when you feel anxiety, that's an opportunity to be like, oh, okay, I see that. I'm gonna take a breath. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna try to make friends with this right here. It's not sometimes enough to just see it as raw sensation, see it as garbage, because what you're left with is still seeing it as garbage. You know what I mean? And that doesn't actually, at least what I've found just in the past week, it doesn't actually, it may work, but it just may take longer, honestly. Like, how much garbage do you need to see before you can start picking it up? You know what I mean? Picking up the trash is saying, oh, I'm noticing I'm wanting things to be different than they are. okay, that's so great. That is so great that I'm seeing that. That is a success. I acknowledge that I see that. I'm going to take a breath right now. Oh man, that was so enjoyable. And then in that second, that mini second right after the breath, there's nothing. There's nothing. It's like that unwholesome thought, that unwholesome feeling that was there just a second ago, it's never to be found. Oh, and then maybe it comes back. Okay. Oh, I see it again. Good. All right, I'm going to get my Swiffer out. You know? So like, just like something if that offers you anything, man, I think, as a good friend tells me often, you make it complicated for yourself, and it's making it complicated that also really kind of compounds that dukkha.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's a long-term issue. Like, you don't just root it out immediately. Like, it comes over time, you know, and people have different ways. Like, when I say I'm experiencing these things, I'm not really even talking about my the experience that I have afterwards, which is, you know, not really bliss, not really that. It's more of like tranquility, right? The suffering goes away when I realize what it is, and I realize how it's a false component, a projection into a future that might never happen. So yeah, I mean, this is like what works, and I also do the anapanasati as well. You know, like, I don't just try to. Yeah, they blend with each other. You know,
They do.
When you do anapanasati, yeah, it helps you to kind of get to a deeper layer of mind. You know, because I've heard a lot about the disturbance of mind, right? The when your mind is disturbed, it is an unpleasant sensation. You know, thoughts follow one another very rapidly. We tend to have a lot of thoughts, you know, and a lot of experiences, you know. And so anapanasati helps to calm down the mind. And when your mind is calm, you could actually, you know, when I say mind is so vast, and there's so many different dimensions of mind that it's really hard to kind of nail down exactly which component of mind I'm talking about. But yeah, no, like, the issue that I think everybody on earth really, maybe not everybody, but, you know, pretty much everybody, we all have this mind that works in habitual and unconscious ways, and we're trying to wake up. We're trying to be conscious of how the mind works, and to, you know, get it into a better way, you know, through whatever method works, really. Yeah, no, and there's like, it would be great if I could find some way that just kind of immediately works, and the issues they never come up again, you know. And so I haven't really found any magic bullet yet.
You're never gonna find that. And and it's not a long-term process at all. It's a right now. It's a right now thing. It only ever happens in the now.
If we're talking about feeling good right now, sure. If we're talking about eliminating the source that's creating suffering for all time.
But there's only ever right now.
Right. But I mean,
all time is a
each
concept.
Of us,
all time is a concept.
Can any of us really say that you know, doing these practices, like, Keyshawn, how long have you been doing these practices? How long have you been in bliss mode?
Whenever I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Right. So
there's only
whenever
now.
I remember, it's not permanent. It's not constant anymore. So, like,
right,
you're
nothing's
basically
permanent.
saying
Stop
there's a
going
cycle.
after permanent. You're never gonna
blissful,
catch
and then I'm
that
not
permanent.
remembering.
You're never gonna catch that permanence. That's the issue.
Have you guys ever
It's
been
not-
lost
if you-
in bliss state?
Not lost.
Lost in bliss state? No.
Lost. Because that sounds crazy, like lost in bliss states. Like, you're so blissed out, like you can't even find like right from left. Like, oh my, I can't even imagine. That's where I'm trying to go.
Maybe you're not thinking about left or right, because you're thinking about how good things are.
Oh, that's deep. Actually, I really like that. Yeah,
I think it'd be fun to experience it at least a little bit, you know. Like, it's basically like, you know, the world's most potent opiate, you know. Like, there are ways to unlock levels of pleasure and, you know, euphoria in the mind, you know, that just are unhuman. But we wouldn't say that that's such a good idea, because then what goes up must come down, and eventually, like, unless you find some way to ultimately sustain that, which I don't really think I've ever heard of, or I've never really heard of anybody wanting. Maybe, I don't know, some tantric masters, they're really into that. They're really kind of a hedonistic, you know, spirituality, and so their idea of the goal is to have varying levels of bliss, you know, mediocre bliss, extreme euphoric bliss, bliss out of your mind. And I have heard of ecstatic states, like certain, it's usually like someone who's in trance. Usually they're in like a state of trance. They're chanting and doing mantra, and then they get so far out of their mind that their body just overloads with like pure bliss, and they get kind of like, kind of weird a little bit. But
bringing the
don't doubt that. I
conversation
think
back
that could be
to
possible.
the noble Dhamma here, something that we had talked about yesterday, regarding the self that came up for me today on the topic of feeling like really good. Basically, I noticed it myself, like when you practice and you start feeling really good, and then you're like, for me right now at least, it's like I get this insatiable urge to like go and share it with someone, or like go like tell a friend, or go talk about the Dhamma or something like that. And I noticed that, and I mentioned that to I think Brandon, and we kind of had the discussion, and we pointed out that actually when we do get into that state of satisfaction, that there's not really much of a room for self there at all. And so if there's no room for self, then we can't be selfish. There's no room for selfishness there. And then if I were to keep all that joy to myself, that would be selfish. So it makes complete sense that it's just a natural outpouring of that joy, because there's no bucket, there's no self to be holding it selfishly in there. So it's kind of like a very natural no self. That's the real no self, is the lack of that selfishness.
I heard about a thoughts experiment, which is that if you had just infinite like happiness forever, what would you do? And the sort of the conclusion of the experiment is that you would just try and be kind to others, because there would be nothing you could do for yourself. So everything you do would have to be for other people. So that makes a lot of sense, and I feel
that makes
like,
sense to me. Yeah.
like I've never been like, well, not never, but like it's very difficult to like intentionally be me really good. Like who's like in a really happy mood and they're just like going around being nasty to people? Like it just doesn't really happen. When you're in a good mood, you're just like a nice person to be around. It's like, I think that connection's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like maybe actually
It was so funny. This
improve
was
our
happening on
sila
the bus. It was so funny. This was happening on the bus, and it's just like, oh, look at this nice old lady here. It's just like any random person is just like a friend, It's like, wow, great.
Yeah. I think when you practice
great.
like
What a wholesome
anapanasati, I think that it's anapanasati, and practicing wholesomeness is a great way to open the heart, and it's through that we can experience kind of more of a kind of bliss. I don't know if it happens to you guys, but I've noticed, when I say I notice, I mean, it's not permanent. It's like in various experiences that I haven't been able to pinpoint all the components of. There are times when anapanasati affects me like mentally. It calms my mind. Other times it calms my mind and opens my heart. Other times it gives me a higher point of centeredness where I could see my mind and I could see my heart and I could see reality. So that's a really interesting thing for me. And I think that opening of the heart, maybe I know that everyone is different.
That's
Some
so
people
cool.
don't have heart
Have you heard?
issues.
But for
Fourier,
me, have you heard of?
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of the brahmaviharas? Because that sounds like descriptions of the different brahmaviharas.
No,
It's like
I haven't
four
heard of that.
states.
What's that?
It's like in Buddhism, there's like 4 states called the divine abodes, and then the translation or the Pali word for that is brahmaviharas. And they're just like, I think metta is like one of the states, and then there's like 3 others which all have like their sort of own like unique flavor of like happiness, and they're like states that you can like construct for yourself with like practices like anapanasati and meditation techniques and stuff. That sounds like you might have experienced some of those, which is really cool. Could be something to look into.
Yeah.
You're gonna
I definitely
experience all those as outcomes of the practice. Basically, is what's happening. I mean, it's just a certain degree of satisfaction is gonna. If you're satisfied, then that's gonna kind of rub off on other people. That's like that karuna, aspect or whatever. It's just kind of. It's really not something that's that's really that high up there. It's just kind of it just makes sense that happens. It's just pretty natural.
It's definitely a common experience to do it on accident. But when you get to the point where you do it consciously because you know the causes and conditions, and you're doing a practice to bring it about consciously, frequently, and to where it becomes like a habit almost, that's when it becomes like something special, you know, like when it's not
Yeah,
accidental, when you're not
That's
stumbling
like the
into
level
these states.
99 meditator. It's like you can just like will yourself into like whatever state you want. Just like, boom, meta.
Well, it's still not special
Yeah.
then. It's
It's
just
joy,
it's just
you know,
moving in
like-
the direction of this becomes ordinary.
Dude, literally, we're just like, someone's like, we're literally experiencing the most high states of emotion and positivity. And Keyshawn's like, no,
No.
it's not that special. Literally,
Just-
we could all do that, you know? Literally, like three
Well,
people on earth can do it. He's like, ain't special, man. I'm one of them.
as long as it's special, you won't be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's ordinary, it's no big deal.
No big deal.
I love
Yeah.
because it isn't.
Mhm.
Because it isn't, and thinking it's a big deal is what keeps it away from you. You know,
Yeah.
Well, I just
You know, it's
kind of
then
said
you
that it was
then you
rare,
chase it,
and that I'm at,
then you chase it, and you know
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
chase, you don't get.
You know, I just thought of something that I want to share with you. It's kind of like interesting, like a state. If you think about it in terms of like a physical manifestation, like a state, there's one end to a state and there's another end to a state. It's literally surrounded by a boundary, and it's not permanent. So anything that like is a state is not it. Is not actually like
I guess there'd be a
is not satisfaction.
Yeah,
Is not
yeah.
cessation, right? Because
Yeah.
it's actually additive.
Yeah, that's
Cessation-
really,
sure.
really
There's definitely
Cessation
something to
would be
that.
the
But
entire
one of these
body of
states,
water world. Like,
Yeah.
If you
one of these
thought of it that
states is
way.
what we would call, but what we'll call one of these would be like non-dual ultimate bliss and liberation or something, right? It's the fundamental state, and because it's fundamental, it's omnipresent, and it is blissful and peaceful and tranquil to be in. So it's there. It's like other states obscure this state of non-dual, you know, ultimate bliss or tranquility.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. So
And I
it's-
say
just
Yeah.
to conceptualize what you're saying, Corey, it's sort of like, because I've contemplated this so much, like, is it all just relative and just different states with different qualities, or is there like a true ground of being that the other states are just happening on top of and taking me further away from and obscuring and stuff? And I don't have a straight answer for that. Do you think there is like a truly like a rock bottom, like ground zero of like consciousness that we can access?
to me, when I've experienced it, it's very hard to describe because it feels like freedom, and freedom isn't bound to a single state, right? This omnipotent fundamental layer, it doesn't have a kind of permanent quality to it because everything else appears in it and goes out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it does seem to be fundamental and omnipresent. At the same time, everything comes, because it's omnipresent, everything else is coming and going in it, or somehow is intersectional with it, right? Could be different
Yeah,
dimensions,
yeah.
different planes. So
Are
yeah,
you
that-
familiar
that
with that,
whole-
Keyshawn?
I don't know. These guys are. I have no idea what you guys are talking about right now.
it's basically like the perfection of anapanasati.
I feel
When
like
you
I
do
feel like I'm in
anapanasati enough,
calculus 3 right now.
It's a bit philosophical.
Here's what
It is for
here's
me,
what I'll
sadly.
tell you. Here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you. I don't know and I don't care. I know everything's fine. No worries.
sure.
We're
Well,
chilling.
well
Yeah, so
Keyshawn,
this
That's
state-
a fair proposition. That's a good argument.
have you ever heard of
I think that's the argument that the Buddha would make.
have you ever heard of non-duality?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Of
was
course,
like a big
yeah,
group that I came
I've heard
from.
of it. I've heard of it, but it's just it's just more things to move away, in my opinion, to move away from what the actual teaching of the Buddha is. But
I think that is.
I mean,
I think that is
the
noted though
non-
in the teaching of the Buddha, isn't it?
well, I'm just talking about like the kind of that I would say is definitely in terms of being what we just kind of talked about it, coming out of that state of selfishness, being selfless. That's where you, there's no room for you versus me in that state. So, but I feel like when we start to get into the, kind of typical Western Buddhism trigonometry class, that it just doesn't really resonate with me anymore. I was once there at a certain a point in my life, but not anymore. So.
Yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah.
I can feel myself moving away from that and more to just am I happy now? Like speaking in like normal, like everyday layman's terms, and like not having like
to me,
crazy
all that other stuff is just wanting stuff. It's just wanting stuff. It's just wanting stuff that's not here right now.
That being said, to that point, what I have heard is that the paradoxically, right, in being satisfied with right now, in having this moment be good enough as it is, paradoxically, there is a progression, there is a trajectory, there is, maybe you'll experience non-duality or whatever, or I don't know. I've experienced things before, but experiences are experiences. They come and go.
I think that the best thing you could do with an experience is either be able to replicate it or forget about it as quickly as possible. That the worst thing that could happen to a meditator is having an experience anyways.
Well, actually, I would actually argue that wanting to replicate it. I mean, I guess if you're talking about
wanting to replicate it, but replicate. But actually, if you let's say you tell me that you flew to Mars last night, and then my question is, can you fly to Mars right now? Like, can you do it right now? Go ahead and do it right now. If not, then
well, if you throw away at the thought,
What if it takes me 2 hours of meditation to work up to it?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that all experiences, as we know, are arising and passing away, right? Experiences are experiences. They're like states. They're bounded by itself. They're not they don't stay, right? Even if you try to get an experience to stay, it doesn't stay. Like I don't think it matters. It's not important.
Yeah,
but
I feel like
do think they'll still happen.
I feel like Kishon's approach is a bit more down to earth and a bit more practical, and that's why I think I'm sort of drifting more towards that than like the
same.
Than like the final enlightenment, full arahant, ultimate goal, liberation, like Daniel Ingram approach. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Like you.
Yeah, sorry, DJ.
No, that's all good. I did want to add something, because talking about this is making me think again of like non-self, right, and also the connection between impermanence, right? And so again, you can kind of go through a very sort of interesting investigation into the non-self, and that sort of thing, with like the aggregates and all that, But like the main thing is ultimately, what is it in service of? What is the point of it? And of course, we come back to dukkha-nirodha. So you can go into all these investigations of like, okay, the body is non-self, these mental processes, these thoughts are non-self, this is non-self, this arises, this passes away. But ultimately, we come back to dukkha-nirodha. Let's be satisfied, right? So I spent some time doing like the noting practice and stuff, and that was interesting and stuff. But again, that's when coming back to this sort of method, following that sort of lineage of Dhammarato, and then going back Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and stuff, of like the gladdening of the mind and coming back to just being satisfied, right? You can still go into very in a satisfied way, like enjoying the breath and doing these investigations at the same time, saying, hey, this is non-self. This arises, this passes away. These are sensations dancing, it's all good stuff, right? But I think also there's a certain level, again, when you go with that, where it's like, hey, like it also is sort of that non-dual thing as well, right? Yeah.
Exactly. The non-self thing is kind of overblown, to be completely honest. I think it's more of a tool of understanding.
Precisely.
Really, the proper translation is that non-soul, that we're not a permanent soul. What does that mean?
Precisely.
Well, you just got
Yeah.
into it. You just said that we have the 5 aggregates, which are constantly
Mhm.
changing. The body's constantly changing. The mind is constantly changing. The thoughts are constantly changing, etc. So therefore, if we are not a permanent self,
Mhm.
permanent soul, that means that we can change our unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts, that we can change the whole sort of aggregate of things that we have, start breathing better, start changing the whole thing into a position where actually you could start to say that the truth in the non-self is that we already don't have one unified self right now, that we're a crowd inside, that we're pulling in this direction, wanting this, wanting that, wanting to get rid of that. We're a crowd inside. So maybe we start to unify things and put some self in there, the self that we think that we already have, which we really don't. And put some actual self in there.
I think we're just
unify
That's
the mind
that's a
and come to a
perspective.
state of
Samadhi.
satisfaction, and that's our dukkha-nirodha. That's where we start to put in, and it all happens in this one, right here now, with like, okay, this unwholesome thought, we can change that because we're not permanent. We can change it to a wholesome thought.
Yeah.
Ishan, do you think that's what you're talking about, sort of like the thing where you like, when you become mindful, you sort of like, it's like taking a step back and you sort of become like aware of like more of like your, I guess, like internal processes and stuff. So it's like you'd have these like tug of war, warring selves, and then when you become mindful, it's like you can become aware of both of them. So it's like now you're like neither of them, but you're like unified as just like, in the sense that you're like aware of both of them, whereas before you thought you were one of them and then thought you were the other. Is that sort of what you're talking about? Like that,
Possibly,
taking a
I'm
step
not sure I
back.
fully follow, but I would say,
Oh, okay.
like,
Sorry.
I would say, like, when like you're talking about with the being a crowd inside, like instead of being
Yeah,
unified,
like we'd have
I
like
would just say
different
from the experience
urges and
of
stuff.
actually starting to feel unified, starting to feel like, wow, I feel like whole now. I feel like everything's okay. That's not how we felt before. We felt, we were getting hit left and right with, unwholesome thoughts and thoughts about things that aren't here right now and making us feel bad. But then actually we start to change this one thought after another, one mind moment after another. We start to put it into step, put it into rhythm, put it into rhyme. Everything kind of starts to flow together, starts to unify, and now we are. You could say that now you have like a self working there that is there now, but before it was really just a big crowd.
Yeah. You're like, you have like one objective at a time. You're not thinking about 10 different things and different things at
Yes,
once.
exactly.
Or
Because
one part
the
of you
one
wants to do
objective, the one
the
objective
addictive thing,
is
one part
basically
to
the
do.
freedom from. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no,
I would
I was just
suggest
sort of
that-
saying back
yeah.
like what you said to like confirm that I'd understood it. Like one part of you wants to do the addictive thing, one part to do the good thing. It's like you have one like goal, one focus. You're unified. You're like one person doing things, and you don't have like the
Yeah.
splitting. Well, yeah. So that does answer my question, because I was just asking if you were talking about becoming mindful and like stepping back and stuff. But no, that answers it. That answers that. I know what you mean. Like your motivations become singular.
This is making me think again about like samadhi, or like more Dhammarato's kind of description of it, like the unification of mind, like it coming together, right? And it's
That's
like
exactly what
strong.
it is.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that's yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I've heard someone else say that mind permeates everything. Mind is, we could say, omnipresent, at least for our experience, or someone's going to say that Nirodha Sampati state, right? But anyways, so what I would suggest is that what we're describing with Anapanasati, what we're trying to get to with this, mindfulness, is the same thing as the non-dual self, right? That's what I think, they are both gateways. Anapanasati is one gateway to get there. And the other one, there's a lot of gateways to get there. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to what is omnipresent, right? If it's omnipresent in the universe.
I would just note that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa said that the Buddha only taught one practice, Anapanasati.
Yeah. Well, I'm not in a position to just take from one person when I could take from many. So I mean, it's not my really preference or desire.
But what it,
you know, ironically,
what
I would also say that
what I would
I'd
say
also
is
say that the
probably what
Buddha
you're-
has given me like. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I didn't really get a full scope of what you were describing, but typically when I look at other practices, it's basically some component of anapanasati just kind of incomplete, typically.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, when anything is becoming effective and very consistent for like a wide group of people, it becomes more practice and more people investigate it, and the progress or the method and the understanding and the wisdom, it all begins to grow if it's effective and if it does the job, right? So if we look back at, you know, however many millennia of spiritual tradition and stuff, there's always been so many of these different practices that come up. And they all have a result, but ultimately it's kind of like a battle of spirituality, right? The most effective one is what is going to be spread. It's going to, you know, do the work because it's the most effective one. It's kind of like survival of the fittest or something.
The
right?
most effective one
And-
does not get spread. What has gotten spread is religious Buddhism, and that's not even that's literally basically Christianity. I mean,
but you're kind of looking at the present and the past. Like you can't see the future. You can't see where this is evolving, the human species, and you can't really see from your state of mind how this is going to affect greater progression of the universe, you know. And so it could entirely be that this is what was needed for the masses at the time to progress into something else.
That's
you know,
true.
so
what goes to the
Yeah, that
masses
makes sense.
is what feeds the instincts. So high
Sure.
up there, people on crosses, people in the sky, Buddhas who can see the future and see the past, and walk through walls and phase through mud.
There's a wide diversity of people, you know, like there's the high level spiritual practitioner has always been rare. And so, you know, the high level teachings, they've also been rare. They've been passed down from guru to person. What is made for the masses is a kind of a different thing, right? Because they understand that, you know, just the metrics of it, spirituality, you're not going to find kind of spiritual geniuses all the time, just like you're not going to find, you know, piano geniuses all the time. It's just not the way it works. So when they have systems that work for the masses, that's not necessarily the best thing that's going to work for the highly advanced student. But like in Buddhism, he had things that worked for everyone. And he also had high level stuff that was for people who were very ripe, very ready to, you know, go to the next level. So, yeah, I mean, there's different, you know, things that work for masses don't always work, you know, for the high level advanced practitioner, but we can't say that it's wrong or that it's a step in the wrong direction if we're only looking at the present and the past, you know. And that maybe that does take a little bit of faith in the beginning to kind of be like, all right, well, I don't know everything. I got to trust the universe, the God, or whatever we want to call it. We got to trust that there is something out there, you know, something that is kind of having an effect. And I wrote down the other thoughts. I will finish it, but go ahead, Robert.
You mentioned a high level practitioner. Is a high level practitioner just someone who's like already satisfied like all the time, and so they just want to do like more like, I guess, like magical, Dhammarato might call it, things in spirituality, like the no self and the like the insights and stuff, because they're already satisfied.
If they're a high level practitioner, they're not wanting to do things, I feel like. But I would say
that's the thing. Like, if they're high level, shouldn't they already not have desires for anything?
Right. I wouldn't say a high level practitioner would be someone that's interested in like magical practices.
Yeah.
No, they are. They say that is the last obstacle before enlightenment, you know. So before you could get to the highest level, you're at a very high level and you're interested in, you know, astral projection and manifestation.
I don't
those
think
magical
that's true.
non-states.
I think that's coming from
that's okay.
From the magical
from
perspective.
thousands of
and
other
I would say
teachers.
that I would say that the Buddha said himself that, you know, the first step of the noble path is not held by ordinary people. You know, that actually.
Right. I mean, I have noticed that.
We're talking about the noble path, about basically just knowing, having it's basically an attitude change. You know,
well, I would.
It's not anything high up there.
What I would say, I was talking with Dan Goldfield about this the other day, and we were talking. My best friend actually does magic, okay, And I was reading Daniel Ingram's book the other day, and I saw that he was talking about magic, and it really, really surprised me because, well, I mean, you're talking about reincarnation, you're talking about doing spells, you know, okay, do we know if these, I cannot say for one, I cannot say for sure that these things do not exist. I can't say for sure that these things contribute
I know
to
what you
or
can.
don't
I know what you can
contribute.
say for sure.
Wait, hold on, Keyshawn. Contribute to or don't contribute to enlightenment. But what I can say is that dukkha-nirodha, in my experience, has helped me understand more truly and completely what satisfaction with things as they are really is. And when I am satisfied with things as they are, there's not even thinking about a path. There's not even thinking about, oh wow, I wonder like how far, like I wonder, you know, like what's next, like what's the next part. It's only when, you know, I maybe will start to have a breakthrough like today, or like a lot of relief and success of like, oh, I wonder where this is going. But that right there in and of itself is taking me away from the present moment. So it's a paradox. It's a complete paradox. When we rest here in the present moment, we learn to be here in the present moment, we go proverbially further. However, that further though isn't something that we're trying to do. We are just actually trying to be present. And in trying to be present, there is actual progression of wholesomeness, of mind, of whatever, you know, of equanimity, of tranquility, that calmness, right? We don't get those things by like, I want to be calm right now. I want to be calm. I want to be tranquil. I want to be peaceful. I want to be.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
get it from that. And so like this whole sense of like a magical state somewhere else other than here in this room with me sounds
That's dukkha.
absurd. It sounds
That's dukkha.
absurd if
Yeah.
that was actually going to lead to any kind of enlightenment, because the thing that we know about enlightenment, if we are serious practitioners, is that we don't need anything.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that
It's
we're
saying-
actually,
yeah.
it's a cessation.
Exactly.
This is a subtractive process, not an additive
Exactly.
process. This is
Wow.
things actually like us letting go of things rather than like these mental like doubt and insecurity and those are things that we're doing. So this is a subtractive process. It's a subtraction from doing those things. And that is where the relief is. That is where the satisfaction is. Naturally.
Yeah, the paradox about this is that, so the way that I did kind of have a train of thought on this. So we could call it a kind of advanced practitioner, because their sense of self has gone from being tied to a body, a separate self, and they are non-localized anymore. They're not just trapped in their body. When we talk of someone who's astral projecting, they're still in their mind. That is still happening in the present moment. They just have a kind of transcendent consciousness where they're aware of an energy body that's kind of somewhere else in their mind. And then they also have the localized experience of their body, you know. So what we're used to and what most people are used to is just one sense of reality. It's mostly what's happening in our senses in our immediate environment. When you begin to progress down this path enough, you begin to not be so identified with the self. And when you're not identified with yourself as the body, you are not bound by the body anymore. And you can do what they call astral projection. Ultimately, it's still happening in the present moment, and you're still in your mind. You could still be present and aware, but most people end up kind of going into a trance to do astral projection. And I do think that is an obstacle. That's why they mentioned it as like the last obstacle to enlightenment is siddhi or magical powers. And ultimately, that's still based off of a sense of separate self, that I'm doing magic, that I'm needing to bring about, you know, manifestation of money and stuff. So it all kind of blends into what we're saying, but it is.
I think we're saying the same thing, but it from different perspectives. If I may, like, I relate so strongly to what you're saying, Corey, because like I said, for that year and a half, I was so kind of like interested and invested in like going through the layers of pain and suffering, and you know, going through these layers, and you know, until you getting to the next one. And I had a friend, his name is Artem. He actually said that it's very common for practitioners on the path to experience like you could experience anything from psychosis to thinking you can read other people's minds to thinking you can read their energies. And what he found out is that as he went further along, he saw his own delusion, which again is on top of that ground of natural being, right? And then
Yeah.
that once he saw through it, that's it. It became transparent, and so that he didn't believe that anymore about himself. It's basically he penetrated that belief, saw it as
Yeah.
false, and then that
Yeah.
was the end of that. So what I believe the Buddha's path is, it's like these two, Western Buddhism you could call it, and then the noble path, they're meeting each other in the middle. The difference is that the noble path has you start kind of where the Western Buddhism is like somewhere in the middle of it. Has you start at the end of that. So instead of getting to know all your garbage all the time and how it stinks and how it smells and going through all these layers and getting interested in the these stages and this and that, we're saying no. Let's just be present right now, because this is all you're going to end up with anyway. This is all eventually you're going to be concerned with, the present moment. Eventually, all there is this, but eventually it's going to be like that, where all there is really is this. Like you are just here, abiding here in this present moment, unconcerned with anything else. And we're basically habitually practicing ourselves into
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
condition. We're
And we-
reconditioning the mind to actually subtract and get rid of all of these other processes. And so I think in some cases you actually bypass that magical thinking. You might bypass, that thinking you can read other people's minds. You actually might, I don't know. It's like I don't know. That's all
No,
I
I
got.
think you've got a really good point.
Well, the Buddha put it himself that there's no fires without fuel. So, the idea that there's, some sort of magical power for what we're calling enlightenment. And by the way, I mean, that whole term, I kind of doubt that. I'm not sure exactly how you're using that. If it's not in terms of just like lightening up and relaxing, then it's probably not the real thing, because someone who is light, relaxed, who can see what's going on, is not interested at all in some shiny object that you might be offering called enlightenment anyways. So
Well, what I understand as enlightenment, Kishan, is the cessation of dissatisfaction, the complete cessation of
the
dissatisfaction,
cessation of okay, yeah,
which
that's
translates
lightening
as
up. That's exactly
complete
what I just
freedom. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think
Well, and I wouldn't
using
say,
the same
and
different
actually,
words, but
I
it's
wouldn't
like,
I wouldn't say complete. I wouldn't say always. I wouldn't say final. I wouldn't ever say those things don't exist. I would say that it's doing it right now. It's taking a deep breath right now. Is your enlightenment? Lighten up right now. Boom. There it is.
no, and I agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is, like, as you practice that more and more and more, what I'm saying is it becomes the case. It becomes the case that you're actually lightened up. It becomes the case that satisfaction is here right now. It becomes the case that dissatisfaction is nowhere to be found. And so I'm not
Yeah,
talking
well,
about
it
like
becomes like
that
a
it's
default, which
always
is
turn
really
on the
good.
lights,
Yeah.
when you turn on the lights and then you remember to lighten up, that's what happens. When you're
Right.
good at turning on, when you get good at turning on the lights, then you turn on the lights often, and you see
Yeah.
what's going on. Then you
Yeah.
lighten up often.
You don't have to think about it.
But
You just do it.
there is and the reason why I say this is because, like, my friend Dan, he was taught. I don't know if you guys know Robert. I know you know Dan. Keyshawn, do you know Dan? Dan Goldfield.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Interesting. How do you know Dan? I've never seen you guys talk together. The Sangha chats.
I just know I know of him. I know he's one of Dhammarato students. I know he has his own like kind of meditation school thing, right?
He doesn't have a school. No.
Not school, but like he has like he does like the videos. You know.
He's on
Am I
Insight
mixing him up
Timer.
with somebody else? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, he records some things and puts them on Insight Timer sometimes. But Dhammarato taught him for 3 years, and the way this is for Dan now is like, if something comes up, it's like a rainy day. It's no less or more significant than the weather. which is like we're talking about, when we're zooming out, right? That's what we're doing. When we're like, oh, anxiety, oh, okay, it's not me, it's this, it's here, but it's not me, it's not getting on me. Okay, all right, I can be friends with this. We're starting to like lose our grow distance from it. For Dan, it's like the weather. It's no different than the weather. We don't have a problem. Like when it's a rainy day, it might be like, oh, it's wet outside. Okay, it's wet outside. But it's not like, oh my gosh, my life. Ugh. So like,
Yeah,
hey,
turn on the lights and realize it's time to lighten up. That's all there is to it. That's the whole
That's
practice
awesome.
right there.
What a
So
great
that's like,
success.
that's where this goes. We practice this enough. That's where it goes. Is it like that for you, Keyshawn?
Is it like what?
Like when something unwholesome comes up, is it like no more or less different than the weather? Or would you say it's a little bit more significant than that in that moment?
I would say if I remember, then it's gonna be a day in paradise. That's what it is. It's
Okay.
my birthday. It's a holiday.
Another day in paradise.
Thank God.
All right.
My old friend came to visit me. It's a wonderful day. What more could I ask for?
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's just a point where I think Dhammarato, he said this before. He said we're building the skill of building a house of cards, but eventually we just don't care about building a house of cards anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that happens.
sounds
It's like
great.
you do it and then you forget about it. Like you forget that you've even done it, and it's just like doing itself. It's crazy. It's crazy how that happens. And I feel like it's the same way that like dukkha happens as well, and we reverse the process and go from dukkha-nirodha to dukkha. It's like we sort of forget what we're doing and just find ourselves in it, and it's like, oh crap, I'm in this like now. You don't even see it. It's like so sneaky.
I wouldn't say that
Except-
I wouldn't say that the violin ever plays itself. However, I will say that we do go from the stage of practicing in seclusion to a stage of performing, maybe for, your aunt when she comes over and you put on a performance. And then perhaps performing at the biggest concert that there is, then you're still performing. And then when you're a master, now you're playing. You're just having a ball. You're just having a good time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ever play itself. I think that's kind of not accurate.
Yeah, it doesn't play itself, but because you're playing, it's like
it's an energetic effort. It's not a.
It's like it's a
to
paradox. Yeah.
It's an energy. It's an energy. It's not a. It's no longer effort. It's energy. It's like this is joy. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
What else
know,
would I want
in
to
such
do?
a way that you don't get brought out of the state.
What was that, Corey?
What's that, Corey?
Oh, no, I didn't say anything else. That was the end of it. It was just about balancing.
What about balancing?
Can you guys hear me, bro? Oh,
Yeah.
Maybe I gotta speak louder. I'm in my car. But basically, what we're talking about with anapanasati or different practices, we're trying to balance the mind between craving and aversion so that we could be in a state where we're not we're not trying to avoid any negative things that come up, and we're not trying to attach to anything that's desirable and positive. We're just trying to create a state of balance where we could be okay with whatever comes up. We're not trying to run away.
Let's
we're
go
just
for
being
friendship.
present with whatever.
Use the word
comes
friendship. I would say.
Sure. Yeah, friendship is one path to balancing the mind.
That's good. Being okay with whatever comes up. That was what I practiced for that year and a half I was talking to you about, Corey. But it's interesting though. That became, I don't know. That became, have you guys ever heard of the saying that on the path you'll sometimes use a thorn to pick out another thorn, and then that
Yes,
thorn will become the next thorn to pick out another thorn? That's kind of what I thought about with the okayness. I would allow this sadness, right? But during that sadness, I would have thoughts of like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I don't like this. Man, I wish this would end. Well, by definition, that in my mind's condition in those moments, I'm not allowing it. So at one level, I'm allowing it, but in another, I'm not allowing it. And I think what's really nice about this practice is what Keyshawn is saying. Let's just be friends. Let's be friends. Make contact with that unwholesome stuff. Shake its hand, and we could just keep going. We could just keep going on with our day.
And
Take
and
a
then
breath.
it's
Enjoy.
like I feel like your good enough pointer is like perfect for what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
And it's like a higher order of like gladdening where like the negative sensation is still there, but the dukkha aspect to it is gone.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
lovely.
It's like
That's
that.
just
It's like
so,
it's
that's
Yeah.
such an amazing.
it's not just being okay with things as they are. It's cleaning it out. It's cleaning out
Yeah.
that thing that you've been
It's like
saying
you've
I'm
like
okay
honed
with it
down
as
your
it is.
little like
Cleaning it out.
dukkha radar
It's-
to just like remove that one little like thing that was making it
Yeah.
wrong.
It's the jujitsu. It's the
It's the
jujitsu.
jujitsu.
Using
Yes.
the enemy's
Skillful.
momentum against it. Like the
Yes.
best, I think a really good example of that, and I don't really use this necessarily as like my own mantra, just because it's maybe I will at some point, but was thinking about it in this way, like, okay, the unwholesome thought comes up, right? And then you say, thank you, or like, hello, my old friend, like, thank you for giving me something to worry about later. So basically, in that point in time, by the way, later doesn't exist. So it's kind of a big trick. But I'm basically saying, yeah, thanks for giving me something to worry about later. So I invite it in. Like if this is a house, I invite it in, and it goes flying out the back door. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think another way to say it is that we are cutting the root of these unwholesome thoughts. Sorry, we're meeting these unwholesome thoughts prior to being okay with them as they are. We're meeting these unwholesome thoughts and feelings prior to being okay with them as they are, because being okay with them as they are is saying, hey, take a shower with me. Get on me. Get your dirt on me. I'm going to wear your dirt right now. I'm okay with this dirt as it is. No, we're saying, oh, I see the dirt. Okay, I'm just not going to go over there. I'm not going to go over there. I'll say hi.
Yeah.
We're friends.
Yeah.
Hello. It's great to see you. Okay.
And now you don't feel like you're suppressing the dirt and you're being mean to yourself.
You're not suppressing it. You're not avoiding it. You're still seeing everything.
You're not like spiritually bypassing it. It's still there. You're still appreciating it. Just in a wholesome way.
Yeah. You're just not like under it.
We're changing our relationship to it.
On top of the pile of your dirt.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go, David.
Yeah.
We have another David here, by the way.
Oh
yeah, we do. Guys, this has been awesome. I gotta go though. It's Friday. My girl and I are gonna go eat and watch a movie.
Nice.
This is so much fun, guys.
Alex,
Yeah,
I want to give you
guys.
I want to give you a reframe actually that my friend gave to me the other day. This is really good. It's exactly what we're talking about, like making friends with the negative emotions. It's when you find like something you don't like about yourself or you're not at ease with, ask yourself if your family or society was okay with this thing, would you be? And even if society doesn't accept it, can you imagine a society that would? So it's like when you're angry, it's like, what if society was accepting of anger? And then like the anger can kind of become like this really joyful, invigorating feeling. Or if you're depressed, you can have like compassion for the depression and stuff. That's a really good one. I didn't want you to leave before I said that one.
No,
I find that's a really good reframe. Yeah.
I like that. That
A
reminds
lot of
me.
it's
I
like
like that in
that I've noticed is
concept,
like
but
our social programming like dictates how we react to these emotions and stuff. Because like society says this is unproductive emotion, this is an unhealthy emotion. This means you have a mental health issues, like, and then we try to get rid of it and we're rushing to get rid of it. But it's like if everyone was just like cool with emotions, maybe like treat it like how you treat it in that ideal situation. But anyway, go ahead. Whoever.
But that's why we have all these emotions, because society is okay with it. We wouldn't have learned it otherwise.
Yeah, that's actually true.
It wouldn't be so prolific otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I feel like it's that negative like motivation thing where it's like you're creating more suffering to motivate yourself to alleviate suffering. What? It's like It's like you're going backwards to go forwards, like 2 steps back, 1
But-
forward. Yeah.
But I will
understand what
say
you're saying, but yeah. Sorry,
I
go
will
ahead.
say I think one reason why the emotions are so pervasive, especially the unwholesome ones, is because we have so many people pretending they're not experiencing them. We have so many people pretending that they're not actually there. See, that's the first part. You have to see them first. You have to see them and acknowledge them and be honest with yourself about what is happening right now. To clean it out, you have to see it first. You have to see it. You have to get to know it to some degree.
Yeah.
But then once you get
Yeah.
to know it, you're like, okay, I got it now. I know what anxiety. Okay, I know what anxiety is. Okay, I know what this is. Great. This
Yeah.
isn't. I'm good. I'll let it go.
Yeah.
I
Like
feel
knowing
we
you
have-
have a
getting
problem
at-
is the first step to solving it. It's like the
What, Keyshawn?
AA quote.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's what I was getting at, or like that's like the deeper understanding what you just said of when I mentioned in the beginning, you weren't here, but I think I was describing when I talk about an old, like emphasizing that like, long story short, my mom used to have this, like, say this thing from the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, and so basically and then Corey was talking about how when he was a kid, he had like all this baggage associated with being hungry. And so I was saying, and so he's saying now, like today, when I'm hungry today, I have all that baggage with it. And so I was kind of saying how we basically run off of that old pattern. And, you know, something that we learned when we were 10 years old. And, you know, that isn't it time to grow up now, basically, and start to use the new pattern that we're learning.
I actually only said
honestly,
that it's been so long since I was hungry, and you added the baggage and everything else. Yeah.
No, you said that when you were like a little kid, like you had to struggle to get food. So there, I was saying that you had like that traumatic experience.
No, I said I
around
wasn't
food,
in
being
control
hungry.
of my food. I wasn't the
Okay,
feeder.
anyway,
I was
Alex,
being
what
fed.
was the? Well, I kind of forgot what the I kind of forgot what you said when I was giving my story. I literally went so far off. What was your original point? Because I was trying to tie it into something. I can't remember.
Corey's
The
or mine?
No,
fasting-
Alex, yours.
oh yeah.
Just that I think that the reason why, maybe one reason why emotions are so pervasive, unwholesome ones in particular,
Uh-huh.
is because we have a lot of
okay,
people
okay, I remember
pretending
now.
like they're not happening.
Yeah. Okay, so I was gonna say that when we recognize that all
Or
of
avoiding.
the unwholesome, when we recognize that every single unwholesome thought and feeling that we have is basically really old and has been with us for a really long time. If we don't recognize that, then we're kind of denying it in ourselves. Like we're kind of denying that, oh, that this has been happening. But when you do recognize that this is a really old friend, this is really typical, this is really ordinary, and it's not a big deal,
Yes.
it sucks all
Yes.
the energy out of it, and it can be
Yes.
really relaxed and easy to deal with.
That's a great point. I think that's such a great point. I think that so well illustrates why we think it's going to last forever, because in a way it has. Up until now,
Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
lasted forever.
Now we have a choice.
Such a good
Now we have a
point. So we
choice.
basically brainwashed ourselves into thinking these emotions last forever because, well, at one relative level they do, but when you really start to look at them, they don't. They arise and pass
Yeah.
away, and the more and more you see them arise and pass away, you're like, well, I don't really need to do anything with that anymore.
And I was saying how like kind of one of the takeaways from that for me was that I started putting more emphasis on, like, when I say hello darkness, my old friend, it's like my old friend. Like, this has been here. Like, this is really old. We don't even need to mess with that anymore. Like, that's old. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not even a big deal. Even like we have the new version here right now. Let's run that new version right now instead.
Cool. All right,
Yeah,
guys.
let's drive the
Well,
Ferrari
it's been
instead.
awesome. And hey, Corey, I don't know, like, if there's any concern there for you about this or anything, but like, I don't want you, I'm not sure if this is any way you feel. I don't want you to feel like you're not included or something in the conversation, or you're excluded, because kind of Robert, Keyshawn, and DJ and I are all kind of speaking more, I would say, in the direction of the noble Buddha's path, and you're speaking more in the direction of, you know, understanding the contents of the mind and getting to
Ordinary.
know the various aspects of the mind. I don't want you to be left with that, like, you're wrong or that, you know, you're bad for, you know, talking about your practice, how you are. I got to tell you, for a long time, I was resistant to any kind of mentioning of bringing wholesome or feeling good for quite some time. For about like 6 or 7 months, Dan was telling me like, you can do this, you can do this. And I just ignored it until it got to a point where I saw, man, I am just going through a loop over and over and over and over and over again. And once I saw that enough, I was like, that's it. I need to do something else. There's something else. There's something else maybe that I could be doing here. So
yeah, you dropped one of the
just-
fetters, Alex. You dropped one of the fetters actually, like when that happened, which is I think it's like doubt in the Buddha's teachings. Sounds like you like that's a really big thing. That's like a major like attainment because there's only 10 of them. That's like only 9 more to go, bro.
A
Like,
major
nice work.
subtraction. A major subtraction. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
major subtraction.
Subtraction.
Yeah.
Good
Exactly.
correction.
Corey, did you hear me, bro? I'm not sure if he's there. Are you there? Corey? I don't think he's there right now.
You might have lost him.
Oh, Corey, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I thought I had the voice on. That's probably the last couple minutes I've been saying things, but yeah, no, I definitely didn't feel that way. I mean, it sounds different the way I'm describing it because I'm speaking from a lot of personal experience and different path before really coming to know Buddhism and the things. So the terms that I use are basically, we're getting in the same direction, but there are a lot of personal experience based off of different paths and different things. Yeah, no, but I mean, ultimately, it's kind of like we're headed in the same direction, and I don't feel left out at all. I mean,
Good.
This is like a kind of
Cool,
a common
man.
experience for me to come into a group and they've practiced or studied, and they know the terms and they got the different ways of framing things, different language, but I see beneath it that there's like so much similarity, and that ultimately we're just trying to get to the same place, do the same thing, just have different ways of going about it, different ways of describing it. Yeah, no, but I definitely feel camaraderie and similarity. So for sure.
Cool. All right, guys, this is like the best chat yet. This is so much
I've
fun.
had so much fun. Yeah,
Thank you so much,
great.
guys.
Oh, yeah,
It's
man.
been great.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Friday night.
thank you.
Yeah, you guys too.
Great talking to you.
Bye.
Have a good
Peace, man.
For your attention at the terminal, British Airways Flight 268 non-stop service to London Heathrow. Staging
Yeah, it's
for
definitely, it's
Bill.
awesome, like, talking to, like, everyone and stuff, because, like, I've been watching the videos and stuff, so, again, I'm just so happy, too, like, with, like, Alex, because I watched, like, some of the videos, where he's having, a little bit of a tough time, like, here and there,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, it's really great, but, like, just being here and, being amongst other, like, enthusiastic practitioners is just, it's wonderful, yeah.
It gets you like motivated. Like I'm so much more motivated to practice since joining the Sangha calls and talking with everyone and just like typing in the group chat. Like I'll see someone's Skype message and it'll just say the Sangha US at the top or the Sangha UK at the top, and that alone is a trigger for me to become mindful and gladden my mind. It's like
Yeah.
it really keeps you motivated. I love it.
It's funny. I was describing exactly that to Parker today when we were talking about Eric, when Eric was staying with me, about how basically it was kind of like having another, like you have your brain that does sati, and now we have another brain that does
It's
sati.
like
in
yeah,
the
it's like
same
a collective brain. Yeah.
It's like I'm running with 2 processors now.
Oh man, that's sick. I love that.
Yeah,
brilliant.
that's
So
yeah.
when we did get sick, which we did, and then Eric said, Sati, this is a great opportunity to practice. And then it came out really well. Had a really good
Yeah.
time.
I think I did catch that one, yeah. Or yeah, you were talking about, yeah, with your roommate, and you kind of played off of each other in that sati, and like that helps because it was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling, because of the sickness, it has like, these bodily, sensations and all that. That might not be the most pleasant, but like, hey, you can bounce off of it. Oh, I feel good, right? And it's like, oh yeah, I can feel good too. No, so yeah. Yeah,
Yep,
excellent.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Keep picking each
Yeah.
other up.
There was
Mhm.
something Dan said in the UK Sangha once when I think someone was asking about what do I do when I just can't for the life of me like overcome suffering, and he said, it might have been me actually, but he said like well, we're all here and we can all do it. So if we can all do it, like clearly it's possible, and in a more objective sense, like it's worth doing because we all think it's a great idea. And so you have that peer pressure to gladden the mind. Like that's like the perfect way to use peer pressure. And that's sort of what he was talking about.
Yeah, I think too it's like that confidence like almost boost as well, right? Of that overcoming that doubt, like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do this. This can be done, right? You can clear the
yeah.
mind out, And so, yeah.
And
I know.
you can come to the call, and if you have like a pressing question, like I've done this a few times where like I've had a question come up that's something that's really difficult for me to overcome, and I've just written it down and asked it on one of these calls, and someone's answered it for me, and it's been really helpful. And like it's great to have it's like Keyshawn said, you have a second brain to answer your questions for you.
Mhm.
Super useful.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
Hey,
Yeah.
David in New York City,
Yeah.
what's up, man?
Oh.
What's up, bro?
Are you
How
here?
you guys doing?
Oh. Hey.
Doing good. Doing
Hello,
good.
hello.
Good to see you on back-to-back nights here.
Yeah, I saw you guys haven't called before, but I was eating dinner, so I just finished dinner, and so I just decided to join you guys.
Nice.
What were you guys talking about?
Well, the only thing worth talking about, the Dhamma.
And anything different as to what we were speaking about last night or other calls?
Yeah, I did have a little follow-up on last night that I mentioned, which was about selfishness, about the self, and how there's no room for selfishness when we're in a really good state. And we just, when we're in a really good state, we just can't help but let that pour out, and it's just natural. And that kind of ties back into what Robert was talking about with the brahmaviharas, like that being kind of the metta or the karuna, that rubbing off. And that's just kind of a natural outcome of feeling good.
Yeah, like Keyshawn, do you naturally like find yourself slipping into these states just throughout your day without consciously deciding to, or setting that as the intention for your sit?
No, it's always. I mean, I think that's like going back to what we were saying about Dhammarato said it in his first Guru Viking interview about this, which was, he said, if you stop shaving, your beard will grow back. If you keep shaving, you get very good at shaving.
Gotcha.
So that's how I would put that.
So you do have to like intentionally desire to enter the Brahmavihara to get there.
No, it's desiring to get into anything.
Yeah,
how you don't get there.
Of course, right, of course. Yeah,
and the brahmaviharas are not a practice. Satisfaction is a practice, though. Practicing satisfaction is a skill.
Gotcha.
The brahmaviharas is what you could observe as happening when you have that satisfaction. It's just it's like a side effect,
Yeah.
It's a side effect of being in a good state, that people around you. If I'm pissed off, I can very easily make you pissed off. Very, very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. But do you slip into like a distinct like one of the four Brahmaviharas? Like you can notice like, wow, this is identifiably one specific Brahmavihara, and this has just like happened as a side effect of my practice. Or is it more of like a mixed
I don't really
state
look at it
between
like
them
that.
that sort of flows around?
I don't really think that that's how it works.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think that.
Thank you for clarifying, because I don't know. Like that's why I'm asking.
Well, I would say that, I guess maybe like an analogy. I'm trying to think of one right now on the fly, but like, if you, like we said, like a side effect, if you take a certain medicine and there's like, there's these possible side effects of things that can happen. Like it's just, But in this case, it's not just a side effect that's like possible. It's like highly likely that would happen. That if you are, I mean, like that's why I said the example of like if I'm angry, okay. Well, like to answer your question, if somebody's angry, basically their number one job is to make other people around them angry. You know, and they're gonna behave in a way that's angering and
It's
inspire other
provocative to
people
others.
to be
Yeah.
angry. So if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
joyful, and then when we say the brahmaviharas, whatever, but I think karuna is like the one about like maybe rubbing. I don't know, like one of them about like rubbing off on other people. So that's just that happens.
Yeah, goodwill
you know?
towards others. Yeah.
It's
I don't
not
know the
really.
power,
I don't know, like. And I mean, you know, if you wanted to say like metta was one of them, then like, okay, well, if I'm in a good state, then the thoughts are going to be wholesome, and metta thoughts are wholesome, and so it's likely that metta is happening. That I'm, kind to others, and loving toward others, or whatever word you want to use to describe that. I would say.
Yeah. Great answer. I love how your frame is larger than your own experience, and that it wanted to include like other people in that and how it benefits others. I think that's a really good way to think about things. I think that's a sign of pretty good mental health as well. That's something
You mean like when you're
sort of aspire to more of.
Oh my.
Yeah,
my
like less concern for like my own experience and more concern for how my own experience improves the lives of others. It's like that selflessness that you.
Well, you're not really
about.
concerned about it. You're not really concerned about it. It's just like concern is the last thing you are.
Right. Right.
They are concerned. You're unconcerned, and that unconcernedness can rub off.
Yeah.
Maybe generate a sense of ease, right? You know, that unconcernedness.
For example, I would say I started I'll give an example of like someone working on me in a different way. I started a new job, and at my old job, everything was like really, really uptight, you know, and people would kind of nitpick over like really small things, and these guys just don't do that. Like they are way more carefree, and so that rubs off on, you know, my end of things, that I know that I don't have to be super anal about everything, you know, and that's a good thing, I would say. But so it works. It's just all around us. It's pretty ordinary, you know. These brahmaviharas are not way up there like that. Nothing is.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer as well. I catch myself doing this a lot, and I wouldn't say catch myself because I didn't really think of it as a problem until tonight. But like I do really think of a lot of like meditation as very exalted and very altered, like very outside the norm. And like when I think of brahmaviharas, like I'm normally thinking of like some really like amazing state that I can't actually achieve for like another like couple of years of like really hardcore practice. So that's quite encouraging to like think of it as like, no, it can be mundane.
There's fires and there's fuels, you know. Just go back to the basics. But like, I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind.
Sorry.
Well, if you never experience it and it's positive, then it's gonna seem like it's rare and exalted, you know. Because if we're used to living in dirt and accidentally we kind of stumble into a castle, suddenly we're gonna be like, wow, this is amazing. But if you lived and grew up in a castle,
yeah, it would just be.
I remember what I was going to say, which was that I think that the reason why, and this is, I've talked to Dhammarato has mentioned this, but the reason why we place these things, why these things are in such exalted states, is because of Christianity. Like Christianity is all about that kind of thing, putting people way high up there. And the guys who translated the suttas, you know, here's, you know, just to give you one small example, when the monks go around for Vendapad or whatever it is, they walk around with a pot, with a pot. But the way that it's translated in the suttas by like the Westerners is that it's a bowl. And a bowl a lot more holy, a lot more high up there than a pot. You know,
Yeah.
You don't have pots on the altar. You have bowls on the altar. You understand? So
Yes,
like,
yeah.
it's that pervasive,
Mhm.
and it makes complete sense why all these things are put way up there. But the noble
Yeah.
Dhamma is kind of way down there. I would say it's very grounded.
Yeah,
It's
like
super mundane.
yeah, it turns it into
It's
like this
super
religious
I literally,
artifact that's all
David, that was
special
really
and
good.
ritualized.
I like that.
Yeah.
You catch that, Alex? You said it's super space mundane. You know, like, but
Yeah,
super,
yeah.
It's actually incredibly mundane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good as well, because I think that relates again to the 10 fetters model. Or I mean, yeah, like the 10 fetters model. It's like we're supposed to be losing our attachment to rites and rituals. So like a bowl versus a pot, it's like, you know, is that really the point of the Buddha's teaching?
Exactly.
You know, is surrounding ourselves with Buddha statues the point of the teaching? Like,
Exactly.
or are we just, you know, looking for things to make us feel spiritual and holy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
Yeah.
if we look
Brilliant.
back at like someone, you know, 2,000 years ago in a society where people had like, you know, common sense education, not really college level. They, you know, it was only recently that we were able to, you know, have at our arm's reach on our iPad, you know, the works of Ramana, Buddha, like the, you know, the last 1,000 great masters. We have that at our hands, and so we're able to kind of, if I wanted to hang out with Alan Watts all day, I could watch Alan Watts videos. If I wanted to hang out with Dhammarato all day, so I think I understand why an ancient people would call it an exalted state, because maybe for them, once in their lifetime, they see someone, and they all know it's exalted because they have had a child and they felt a sense of divinity and peace and an exalted state. It was not normal. It didn't last, and it was very desirable. They always wanted to have it back. Suddenly, they see a person who has found out how to activate that as their state. They have realized it's become mundane to them because it's their normal state.
Yeah, they can
But
just do it at
that
will.
would seem, that would seem so rare and
Exalted,
exalted. Like,
it's a very Christian word, you know. Rapture.
I mean, if you have like connotations to it, it's just a word. So whatever attachment and whatever context we put to it,
but
is
it's being
on us.
you're reading the translation though. You know, you're reading they translated it as rapture. Okay, you're reading what
Do you
they
understand
decided
that
to put
what
in.
exalted is pointing at, though? Do you kind of get?
I understand
maybe
that.
also.
But I also understand that there's somebody who's translating that based on their
Right.
interpretation.
So
that
for me,
might
it just
not
points
be-
to something. It doesn't have a
it
negative or
points-
positive
it points to
connotation to it.
something. Bhikkhu Bodhi points to something. That doesn't mean that the Buddha points to something. That's two different
That's
things.
what words do. Actually, they do point to something. That's where the
No,
power is.
you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying that the word that you're like reading into, like we're reading into the word rapture, that somebody decided to use the word rapture when they translate.
I actually use the
that
word
doesn't
you read into
necessarily
it.
mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just how we use words, you know? Like, obviously,
rapture.
yeah, I know what you're saying, though. When we think of a tree, we think of a full-grown tree or something. But a tree is also a seed. It's also a sapling. It's also the sunlight that comes into the tree. It's a lot of different things. So when we use the word tree, we think of a tree. We think of a frame in time.
No, that's not where I was getting at. That's not what I was getting at. I was getting at like the same example with the pot. Okay, the pot and the bowl. Like basically, the guy who sat down to translate it into English decided to make it a bowl. Decided to make it a lot higher than the pot.
Yeah, like he picked a
originally,
word
it was
with
just
religious
bowl.
connotations or like
Yeah,
extravagant
they added that in.
connotations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they added that.
or
in.
magical connotations.
This stuff.
That's
Well, I
interesting.
think that
That's a
it
really
does the
interesting
job.
perspective.
You know,
I'm gonna keep
I
that in
think that
mind
exalted.
when I read suttas and this sort of thing. Thanks for sharing.
So
whether we call it exalted or mundane or whatever, like that's some way of us describing our experience or pointing to it. But like I was talking about, you know, how they used it 2,000 years ago and how we might have different connotations. And, you know, I don't think that, you know, 2,000 years ago, before Christianity had spread to them, they didn't really have any exalted connotations of Christianity. That's something that we attach to it because we have experienced that. But the word itself is what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to understand.
What I know about the history of Buddhism, what I know about like the Buddha himself is that was a rebellion against the existing religions, the existing exalted things of the time. It was a rebellion against the exalted into what can I do to end suffering in this lifetime right now, instead of some great big thing high up there, and that has to do with multiple lifetimes. It has to do with superpowers, has to do with wanting things and that you don't have, basically.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of that when I used the word exalted. To me, it could mean something like rare. Exalted is something like I was actually mentioning that, if it comes along once in a generation and it's something that you've only experienced for 3 minutes in your life and someone else has found a way to live in that state, that is a kind of rarity. Rarity doesn't really have that negative connotation of exalted, because I guess in exalted, we're thinking about, a progression of things of like, this is exalted, this is trash, right? But rarity is more of like a neutral term. It just denotes what they probably experience it as. That's a rare state. And when we say exalted, it also does kind of give that added meaning that is enjoyable. If it wasn't enjoyable, why would anybody do it?
But
So
at the end of
to
the
some
day,
extent, it serves the purpose.
At the end of the day, all of these states are at like the states that are real are pretty ordinary, and that we go into them all the time. Like ordinary
But in
people
the beginning,
go into, ordinary people go into first jhana, maybe not, maybe not all day, but at least maybe a couple of mind moments a day. At some point they have to. That ordinary people have nibbana moments. That's what Bhikkhu Rasa talks about. That when the worker comes home and sits down on the couch, maybe for just one breath, he just like plops down. That's a little nibbana moment. Nibbana for everybody, right there.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can recognize that it's actually not that exalted, it's not that crazy, it's not that out there, that it's easily available.
You just got to notice when you're having it, like notice that this is actually here, like, oh, that was actually satisfaction right just there.
And we can start to give them to ourselves. We can start to,
right.
Like Dhammarato used to give,
if we add adaption to exalted, it becomes mundane, right? If you are experiencing the birth of your first child and you're young, you never experienced anything like that before, it's exalted, it's higher and better, and like you just like, wow, I'm totally at peace. I don't want anything else other than to be here with this child of mine. This is literally me. And that's what kind of, it's exalted in the beginning because it's different, it's new, it's unique, it's rare, and it's also desirable. But when you adapt to it, then it does become mundane, and it's not what we would say, and I think sometimes when people say that, like, I'm in an exalted state or something like that, they're really trying to communicate to someone else who they're teaching or sharing with. They want to help them out and be like, this is actually desirable, but if they kind of we're like, oh, this is mundane, it's my normal thing, and they never really mentioned it, someone else would kind of just be like, okay, I experience the mundane all the time. But the mundane for the person who is beginning the path, the mundane for them is the mind, an active mind that's causing them like all these issues. And then when they experience no mind or peaceful mind or present, calm mind, that is an exalted state for them in the beginning. But then they adapt to it, and then they get used to it, and then it's normal, and so it becomes mundane. But in the beginning, it's exalted. And if we're talking to someone else, we're trying to give them a feel for it, using language. The other way is to do it by presence. And that's what we would say is like the guru. That's Dhammarato's method. He doesn't tell us he's in an exalted state. He sits in it, and we absorb it by being in his presence, So there's different ways to go about sharing it. For us, it's a language, and it's experiences and things and ideas. But for there's other ways to share it, which would be kind of like, I've been reading like a little bit of Ram Dass lately, and he talks about his guru, and the guru never says I'm in an exalted state, but just by being in that state, being calm and being open and being loving, naturally people begin to experience what he's experiencing because he's calm. They could be calm, And so, like we could use the words to describe it, or we could actually live it and be it, and it's shared in a different way. We could say one is sharing through language and words in the mind. The other one is sharing through presence or absorption or osmosis or something like that, where we don't really use the mind to get it. We just see it replicated, and it by a natural process, we just begin to like do it. Or it unlocks the, another thing I was going to mention previously was the analogy of illusion. It unlocks that illusion in us, or it helps us to see through the illusion, when we're around someone who's peaceful, in an exalted, peaceful state, maybe I can't kind of get what you're saying. We don't have to use the word exalted because it does have connotations that are not necessarily desirable. So
Yeah, I think
we're
when
around,
Buddhadasa wrote the book, Nibbana for Everyone, he's inviting us to no longer treat, I guess, what you could consider the highest, the epitome of it all, Nirvana and Nibbana, no longer treat anything that the Buddha has provided as exalted or way high up there, that it's for everyone.
Right.
It's easily available. It's pretty ordinary, you know.
Yeah, that's what the Buddha was getting at with the Buddha mind, you know. And I think I can't remember the exact sutra, but I remember somewhere in the Buddha's teachings, he mentioned, or maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was someone else close to him who taught or something, but there was mention of you'll never be enlightened, you'll never actually get anywhere if you don't think it's possible. If your mind is blocking you from I'm small, I'm tiny, I'm insignificant human being, and you're like, wow, that's exalted, that's enlightened, I'll never get there. You actually never will get there because you are blocking your own way. And so, yeah, like to some extent, like we've had enough as a species, we've had enough of people kind of going around in what we might call a euphoric state, not necessarily a peaceful state, but they just go around like radiating blisters, smiling at everybody. And,
You could do it right
like
now.
that does.
Robert's
Right,
doing
we
it
could
right
do
now.
it in a certain
Robert's
way
an expert, actually.
that,
Robert is my
right.
my version of what you're describing, actually. Right now.
Yeah, it's not something that's unrealistic, right? We're not going around beaming happiness, and we're not going around being like, our actions aren't eliciting
When you remember,
a response.
you can.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And that's why
but
that's why sati is the most important. Sati is to remember, so that you can remember to beam happiness. There you go. Have a smile.
right.
Share
Yeah,
it
and just
with
like,
somebody else.
it's not exalted in the sense of being impossible. It's, it's like kind of, just rare. And if we practice enough, we're going to get there, but that essence of either you have to know that you could do it by some kind of ego, which we might say is a kind of karma. We're naturally propelled to enlightenment because we have some malformed ego that believes we can do it, or we have faith, right? And if you have low esteem and you don't think you could do it, faith is going to work better for you because faith isn't
Faith is for
dependent on.
victims.
I would say that faith is very important for a lot of people, like it's not the balm that works for everybody, but it is very powerful for certain people.
People make it important because they're victims, and that's victims make things important.
Sure. Yeah, no, like I was just mentioning something. Yeah.
The noble approach would be that you can get yourself into a good state right now. Okay.
Well, you have faith
and then
in the teachings.
and then you do it again. And then you do it again. Then you do it again. And then you come to know from evidence instead of faith. You come to know from evidence that you can be confident. You have confidence that you've done it before and you can do it again. That no matter what situation comes up, you can clean the mind out. That's the first step of the noble path, not held by ordinary people.
I mean, I think faith would kind of get you
the boat you don't need anymore.
Well, like if we talk about people who are, equally or have a kind of a karma or an inborn desire, they don't really know why, they just know that they're pulled towards spirituality, but they have self-esteem issues, For them, confidence isn't really in the game. Self-esteem issues is almost like meaning.
It's not in the game because they haven't developed it. It's a skill to be developed. It's not something that you're just going to have, because if you've never done a tight wire rope walk, what kind of confidence are you going to have going onto the Empire State Building to do a tight wire rope show? You got to go ahead.
Well, I
and
think
practice.
maybe, faith is like, for someone, imagine if you had tried to just have confidence, like you said, if you just tried to practice confidence, but you had never really figured out the root of the self-esteem issue. What you need to practice is this thing that you're trying to be confident about. So if you're trying to walk a wire, then you practice walking, maybe thicker, maybe a log to start. And then maybe you start to close your eyes while doing it, and then maybe you start to dance on the log, and then maybe you move to a rope. You get pretty confident. You develop it because you know that you can do it because you've seen yourself do it. You've done it over and over again. You can do it. That's confidence. You can do it. What if you've never done it before? What if you've never done it before and you could never achieve it because your esteem is blocking you from ever being even able to have some kind of...
You've never smiled, you've never laughed before, you've never felt satisfied before. You have. Everyone.
We're talking
if you
about
hadn't done that. If you hadn't
diversity
done
of
that,
people, though.
Yeah, like in a
you know,
rare
we're
case of
talking
like
about a million
someone with
people.
like
Let me finish,
clinical
let me
depression
finish,
or something,
let me
like
finish,
they can't really
let me
feel
finish.
joy.
If you hadn't ever felt a nibbana moment, you would be dead. You wouldn't survive. Like if you would just be too stressed out. Like animals die when they're too stressed out. You have to have had that at some point. But what we're talking about here is like actually practicing it anyways, like deliberately. So the whole point is that you practice it deliberately and develop, you know, that skill from having practiced it deliberately. And so then when you have the skill, then you know no matter what, you know, you're pretty confident that you can handle it in any situation.
Yeah, faith becomes wisdom. Like, but in the beginning, what I'm talking about is like people in the beginning. If we're talking about 1 million people who practice some of these practices, you know, 1 million of them, they're not all going to be in a level of having what we would call confidence. There is going to be a percentage of people who
No, that's
are...
exactly what I'm saying, is that it's all about developing the confidence. It's a skill. I'm not saying anybody's starting off feeling like they can get into first jhana immediately. I've never said that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you learn to do it over and over and over again from the start. From being a sad sap into a good, you know.
Yeah, like you can't really skip
happy-go-lucky
steps and just like
Yeah.
it's like your first day of Anapanasati and it's like, okay, on blind faith I'm gonna experience first jhana, and like you go Super Saiyan. Like that doesn't work. I've tried that. Like
Yeah, exactly.
But if you look
David,
at
what were
faith
you
as
gonna-
surrender, as letting go, then you would have experienced Anapanasati. So your concept of faith might have been malformed to begin with, because you believe that faith was something other than... So, I mean, faith doesn't...
It's another victim's tool, I would say. I mean, why do we have to use the word surrender? We could be on top of this thing. We could be,
I
we
love
could be
that.
victorious.
That's very
Well, like
interesting.
I'm talking about, it's like,
Wow,
you
that's
know,
fascinating.
we could call it the same path. Like one leads into the other. In the beginning, faith has a component of not knowing, right? That's actually what faith means. You believe without knowing.
No, because you can see Dhammarato on the call laughing, joyful. You can see it, right? That's already your first piece of evidence. Okay, you don't take faith into a courtroom. Take evidence into a courtroom. So if you
The
had
only
never done
evidence
it
that
before,
I would have is that
quote
he can do
unquote,
it, not me.
Exactly. That's something.
That's the beginning of faith. When you see confidence in someone else, you have faith that it might be possible for you, and you try without knowing. Yeah, it's like it leads into something else.
Now you're blending the definition of the word, but that really is evidence, and you can take that evidence and say, okay, well, he can do it. Let me give it a shot. Oh, I did it. Oh, I did it again. Oh, I did it again and again and again and again and again. And now, even if I have handcuffs on, I can do it. Even if, you know, they're like foreclosing on my house, I can do it. Even if, you know, whatever's happening, I can do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you feel more sane because you're not doing it based on, you know, blind faith that like, I don't know, it's the right thing to do or something, or it's
the blind
best
faith is
technique
coming
or
from
whatever.
blind faith is like,
It's an imbalance.
hopefully God doesn't send me to hell. You know, like hopefully that doesn't happen. You know, I'm gonna say my 12 Hail Marys and go to church every Sunday to have faith that I don't end up in the hot zone when I'm dead. That's what faith is good for.
Oh yeah, I was actually just gonna head out. It's about time for me to sleep. But you know what? It's been an excellent conversation, and I've enjoyed it so much. So thank you all. Thank you, Keyshawn, Robert, Corey, and is that another Dave in there too? So yeah, no, it's been really good, and thank you so much. All right.
Was it your first day?
Yeah, it's first call. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Great to meet you and like have you join and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. All right.
David, let's stay in touch, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Bye.
See you. Take care.
Ciao.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of like what I'm trying to get at is that there's got to be if everything is connected, right? And if faith isn't some island out, or if faith and confidence aren't islands out in the middle of nowhere, there is something that comes before faith. There's something that comes before, or there's something that comes before confidence. There's something that comes before faith. There's something that comes before that. The root of all those things, maybe we could say, is ignorance or being or ultimate reality. The Buddha really, showed by example that you could dive into things using wisdom and concentration, and you could go to the root of things. Before you could do it, you have to have faith you could do it. If you don't have some kind of faith you could do it, you gotta, like, maybe we could even say curiosity is like a little bit different than faith, but of a similar vein. Because if you're curious,
Well, what
you're
I'm
gonna try.
inviting you to do, Corey, is to no longer need to rely on faith, that you can actually be confident based on skill development. And I think that would be, a good idea.
Never said I was
if
into faith. We're talking about populations of diverse people who practice spirituality, and some of them are going to be led by faith, others are going to be led by confidence. So we were really describing people and how manifestations happen in different people, different stages of progression. So I mean, I am saying these things, and I'm agreeing with you about.
I'm not really interested at all in talking about people, because the noble Dhamma is for the few. So I'm not.
Maybe it wasn't for you.
I'm not particularly interested in that, because at the end of the day, if we're gonna practice and talk about noble Dhamma and develop that way, I mean, like, the masses are not gonna end up. I mean, the Buddha says it himself, that it's not held by ordinary people.
Right.
So
Faith alone is a dead end. So I get it. It's not the end goal. So we don't want to practice that. But, I don't know about like DJ, or what's the guy with the pillow behind his head? I can't see his name.
Well, he's got enough wisdom to be on this call. I think that's a pretty strong start.
I know Keyshawn and David, but
Robert.
Robert. Sorry, I couldn't see the name anywhere. But I mean, if we're past the point of faith, doesn't mean other people are either. And even if they are past the point of faith, if they understand how faith is taking place in other people, it lends to compassion and understanding. And
if I'm talking to someone who is not past the point of faith, I could provide them, I could offer them, I could invite them out of it and into looking at evidence. That's how I would approach it.
Sure.
Otherwise, yeah.
Right, and maybe it wasn't such a good idea to talk about, the different paths that lead to the end goal or whatever. I mean, in some sense, I get what you're saying. Like, it's, we should focus on the more concrete things and maybe not talk about, things that no one here really said that they need faith or that they would benefit from faith, really. I was just kind of felt an intuitive urge to say that maybe someone in the call would find some benefit in it in some way.
I'm glad you mentioned it, Corey, because I think faith. I think Keyshawn's brought up some really good points which I hadn't considered before, and I'm grateful he shared those with us. But before he mentioned those, and it sort of changed my perspective, somewhat drastically. I was like quite big on like the faith, because sometimes, like, when I'm gladdening my mind, it's hard to find a reason to be happy. And so sometimes if I can just say, well, the reason is there's no reason and I can just do it, there we go. Like, and it works, then like it's blind faith and it works. But it's also a form of wisdom, because if I've done that once and it's worked, then I can do it again and again. So like Ishan said, it's not really faith anymore. It's like it's wisdom, because it comes from like the past experiences and stuff. But it was faith the first time.
Yeah,
well,
like
I would
faith
also add to that,
something else.
like, I would add to that the gladdening of the mind, or you could also look at it from the subtractive point of view, that you could have had an additional unwholesome thought, but merely not having an unwholesome thought is merely not pumping more adrenaline into your system, merely not feeling even worse. So that's, I think you could look at it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like the subtractive model. That's good.
If I was like 18 and I didn't have the knowledge and concept and wisdoms, faith could provide a similar pathway to the present moment. If let's say, for example, I was 18 and, the world was crashing down around me. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know any solutions, any practices. I didn't have any wisdom. I didn't have anything. in the beginning, before you have wisdom, sometimes people can rely on faith. They could be like, I don't know why the world's crashing around me. I don't have any concepts, words. I don't have any practices or teachers. The world is dark around me. Faith
Yeah.
is kind of like the beginning. You don't know.
Yeah,
that
like
Yeah, I
it's your
said-
shining
I
light
did
at the
say
end
that.
of
I
the
did say
tunnel that
victims
keeps you
use
going.
faith. I did say victims use faith, didn't I?
Yeah, like I mean, it's a natural thing. Like
But
it's going to
we're not
happen
victims
naturally.
here. That's what I was kind of getting at. But I guess you were talking about other people. So I agree with you then. We're on the same page.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was talking about a past me too. I've had experiences with faith. I've felt its power, and I've felt the effect that it can have in a positive way. Ultimately, I don't keep with faith because wisdom replaces faith, So it's definitely, it's kind of like the seed becomes the tree, It's the same thing. But when we use these words, it helps us to kind of keep place in time. It helps us to know that, like, in the beginning, when I didn't have any knowledge or wisdom, all I had was faith. And faith in that instance, in that beginning, it allowed me to let go of the suffering and pain and experience something that is, close to bliss or glory or grace. It's the first kind of positive feeling. I don't know why it happened or when or what. As I begin to have more wisdom and knowledge and training, I can actually do things. I don't have to rely on blind faith. I'm actually able to, do it by wisdom and practice, And so, yeah, I definitely think it's like a good tool for some people. And beyond that, it's also helpful to understand the world that we live in. And we could see that expression in other people. And, if we
I don't
know
know
that faith goes to wisdom.
I don't know that we can say. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say ordinary Christianity, Buddhism is good for. I can't even let those words come out of my mouth. Like I just can't say that that's true.
It's for the masses,
It's
faith is for someone who doesn't
dukkha.
practice,
It's
who's
dukkha.
not living the lifestyle. They're not dedicated
It's
to
like-
it. They're not committed to
It's
it.
like
They're just kind of
describing
like,
it's like describing what's incorrect and saying that that's good for the masses. And yeah, I mean that's basically what it is. But one of my favorite stories from Dhammarato that he likes to tell is like when he was in the Watts in America, and the Americans would come up to him and ask him, "What does he believe in?" He would say, "I don't believe in belief. I believe in evidence." And even that second sentence, is
Right.
kind of the wording on that is a little bit off because you don't believe in evidence, but you observe, you collect evidence, and you go based on that.
sure. Yeah, I could see faith. Ultimately, if I only had faith and I lived in a monastery for 40 years, I could make it work. I could do something with it. And I remember a long time ago.
Why even
I
say
had-
that though?
Because I had
Buddha
so much
himself
success
said-
with it at certain times.
The Buddha himself said, "Don't take anything I say, or your teacher says, or whatever book says. Don't take anything anyone says. Go off of your own experiences, your own evidence. Investigate for yourself. And so that investigate for yourself, that means collect evidence. Collect evidence, develop confidence."
So the way that
That's
I would
what-
speak from experience on it is that if you are very powerful in your faith, essentially what you're doing is you're letting go of mind. You're letting God take the wheel, and you are being okay with reality as it comes. Good and bad, you have faith in God. Bad thought comes, faith in God. Faith is essentially letting go of the mind and letting it unravel and become in a state of peace. When you have faith, true faith, like deep, deep faith, you're not even afraid of death. They mention that in the Bible a lot. And I'm not real big on the Bible. I don't really, it doesn't speak to me so much, but I have had times and I have understood people and how it works for them. And I've had success with it to an extent. And, when you have enough faith, it can do similar things to, opening up the mind, and like, ultimately I decided that faith wasn't the best route for me. So I didn't stick with it forever. But I have had a lot of success, and I have had, the thing about that is that it's sporadic. It's kind of like we don't know why faith is working. We don't really understand it. If we use wisdom, we can kind of, and
It's
if you
more
go the
reliable,
route of
right?
faith,
Yeah. The wisdom's more reliable. Like the faith is kind of hit or miss sometimes.
yeah, like we have to have complete faith. Faith has to go from being a practice that we do
I
I
into
don't
our
understand why
natural
we're
state.
even defending. Why we're even like? Why are we? What is the purpose of this?
Sure. Yeah, let's just talk about Jesus.
just
What's
trying
the
to
weather? What's the
understand.
weather like in New
I'm
York,
trying to.
David? I'm more curious about that. Is it like 30s or 40s? What is it looking like out there now?
What for in New York City?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cold today. I went out later at night.
New York just don't stay cold. It stays brick outside.
Yeah, it's brick. It is brick today. It is brick today. But I mean, like we don't have we don't have other New Yorkers here, so I use a more general term. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brick as hell today, though. I'm not gonna lie.
It's cold out. Yeah. I mean, I was in LA today, so it was like a big shock coming into this beautiful weather from Chicago. Oh my God.
Do you have a layover or something at the airport?
I was gonna go to I was gonna have a layover in New York. That's what I was saying last time. I was gonna go to New York, but I ended up my flight got like canceled. I like booked it with this like sketchy website, and they like canceled it, and then they switched it to like a direct flight. And I was so looking forward to going to New York. That would have been great, but it's okay. No worries.
Okay. How long are you in LA for?
Just a few. How long am I in LA for? I'm leaving tonight. I'm going back home right now.
Oh, what the? You just went for one day?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's rich. You didn't know?
Oh wow. What like was
What
it
did
like
you
a
do? Like,
business
what brought you?
business trip? Yeah.
No, it wasn't a business trip. No, I was just visiting a friend.
Oh sweet.
Right on.
Okay. I can dig that.
Yeah.
Quick mini vacay and just come back.
Yeah, I gotta get back home and take care of some stuff, but
I haven't been on a plane.
We're
since,
chilling now.
I haven't been on a plane since COVID. How's the plane situations?
On my flight here, it was I was literally like laying. I was like at one point I laid down in my like empty free row, which was great.
Nice. You got a whole row to yourself.
Yeah. A couple people did. Like it's like people behind me and in front of me that were had a full row. I don't know how it'll be tonight though. We'll see. I feel like it's a holiday weekend, so like travel should be up, you know.
Yeah. Do you use the whole row to sleep on or not?
I did not fall asleep, but I did attempt to like rest on the plane.
Did you watch a movie?
Sitting up. No, I was just breathing and enjoying. It's actually a really good time. It was a really good time. Actually, the bus ride after was even better. I took a bus in LA. It was interesting. But yeah.
Nice.
Robert, where in the UK are you from?
Hereford. It's on the border of Wales in the countryside.
Right on. I like your accent too, man. I like English accents and Austrian.
Thank you. I like your accent too.
Thanks, man.
I didn't even realize, Americans have accents, right?
Yeah.
You're the
What
one
does
with the
mine
accent.
sound like? Can you tell any difference?
Sorry?
Can you tell where my accent's from?
I have no idea. I can't place like the accent to the region in the US.
Okay. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so there's a little bit of like Northwest, but I also used to live in the South, so I have a little bit of a Southern drawl.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
If I guess correctly, will you let me know?
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah, pretty close. A little bit south of there, about an hour and a half. It's a little town.
Oh wait.
Yep.
It's in Washington though.
Yeah, still in Washington.
How did I know?
I live about 30 minutes south.
Well, that's
I think there's
guess.
only like 4 states in the Pacific Northwest. You had a 25% chance to begin with, but yeah,
Well,
no, I mean, did you know or did you guess?
I kind of knew.
How'd you know?
Based on your Dhamma.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is it because of his accent or is it because of like the pragmatic Dharma movement?
Yeah.
I think I saw your
I've
episode.
never
No,
actually
I've
been
got
part of
I got
pragmatic
cities
Dharma, though.
going. I got cities going, guys. I know where everybody lives, by the way.
yeah, it's just extrasensory perception.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right, what am I thinking right now, Keyshawn?
Pyramids.
You're thinking about what? I don't know. you're thinking about me not guessing what you're thinking correctly.
No, but that was a pretty kind of like a cool answer though. Actually, yes, yeah. Oh, wait, actually, yeah. Yeah, that was like
What were you
sort of like a
thinking about?
secondary like background thought that was kind of like running there. I wasn't even aware of. That's
I think
crazy. He knows what I'm
so
thinking before I know what I'm thinking.
So we could actually take this into a direction where, because Corey mentioned the cities earlier, and now that we're saying this, I'm kind of remembering what the noble position on this is that in terms of reading somebody else's mind, when you understand your own mind, I mean, our minds aren't that different. You know, if I understand my mind, I could kind of understand what you're thinking too, basically. But that's a pretty ordinary thing. It's not really that magical, It's like, yeah, I could guess. If I say pink elephant, I probably just make you think about pink elephants, in your head. Understanding the mind.
We're like similar age. Like I'm in my 20s, you're probably in your 20s. Like we're both Westerners. Like there's probably a lot of like, it's like you mentioned the pink elephants. Like that's sort of a cultural trope now, and it's sort of like part of the zeitgeist. So there's so much of that that's probably just like way more similar than we even would realize or would like to admit.
It's
probably like 99% similar.
Like, when someone guesses your mind, you're like, I'm going to have him guess my mind. I'm going to think of the most obscure thing. It's going to be a lamppost, and it's going to have snow, and it's going to have spotlight, Did you think of something like really obscure that he would never guess?
I thought of like a cheeseburger. It's because I was thinking of America, and that's sort of associated with that. Maybe. It's just what came to mind. It was kind of like a random thing. I might be a bit hungry.
Cool.
Yeah, it was just like a random thing. Sort of like, yeah, no reason.
Yeah. I mean, the Buddha does, or it's in the sutras that you can't know what's in someone else's mind, which is also a thing too.
Not yet. Wait until Neurolinks comes out.
Sure.
Buddhism 2.0.
Yeah, they had that monkey playing Pong with its mind. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, I saw that video. That was a pretty interesting video too. Yeah. Kind of crazy.
One of the things that I've thought about on why it's so hard to replicate a mind is I've thought about this kind of tied into a time I was thinking about the self and how it works. Part of the difficulty of replicating a mind has to do with the way that identity is formed. I've always thought that in the present moment, there's only the present moment. So the self must also be in the present moment. And because the present moment is always changing, the concept of self must also always be changing. So it's like it's, freaking impossible or near impossible for them, perhaps, with the computing power that they have right now, to replicate this ultimate machinery of the universe, the human brain, in such a way, because we don't really understand how the mind is extrapolating itself from a constantly ever-changing environment. And a lot of people don't really get that their sense of self is changing so much, because it tends to have these deep ruts, these kind of significant recurring states. For me, one was anxiety. I was very anxious growing up. Anxiety was a thing for me, right? So it was one of my dominant moods. So I always thought that, I wasn't changing, like, I'm not changing very much. And I never really understood how the concept of self is constantly drawing in new information, new experience. And, either overlaying it or using the past to kind of. So the self, it's like, how can you label or replicate something that is in a state of constant expression, constant change, and also like has this sense of, omnipresent being. There's like, what we call the false self or whatever. It's always changing. It's based off concepts. It's in our mind. But then there's also the non-dual self that they talk about, right? And they say self for both, but it's non-dual realization or something. So there's this essence of being that is always there in every state we have. And then there's also this changing self that is based off of context, and it's based off of where I'm at, and we could call it a self, but really it's a kind of a localization of, it's a way our mind is kind of funneling everything.
I'm not sure that I buy that thing that you said about always there.
Non-stop service to Sydney, Australia.
I mean, it's something that you can explore.
Vocabulary, and actually, the whole idea of dependent origination is that the self is dependently arising, but it's not always there.
The false
That
self
it's
is
dependent on causes and conditions.
right. So if we look at liberation, it's liberation from, you're still in this cycle of cause and effect. You're still experiencing what we would call like a human body. You're still experiencing, things, but the false self isn't there anymore. It's not causing.
When
the
you're
same
asleep,
issues.
you're not experiencing things. You're not conscious.
Well, we say that because we're not used to it, but there are people who are conscious when they sleep. There are people who are. And so just because we can't experience it yet.
No, it's not that there are people who are, it's that you can become conscious while you're sleeping. Again, it's just dependent. Can you wake up a little bit? If you wake up a little bit, then you're in the dream. And then if you wake up a lot, then you wake up. Then you don't dream. Right? That's why.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just taking it on faith, I guess, about when other people say there is a state of realization that is frees you from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one time
wait,
as
so if
Dhammarato, Robert, one time as Dhammarato, you're gonna get a kick out of this. One time as Dhammarato, I was like, can you like help me out? Like, what do you do? When you're dreaming, or like, how do you do lucid dreaming? Dhammarato told me, like, I don't dream.
That's brilliant.
That was the best thing I ever heard. Like,
yeah, it really used to like annoy me and frustrate me, but like the more that like I watch the videos, the more like the Dhammarato shutdowns become like the best learning moments, because he's like, that question is like, it's leading you away from, you want the answer so bad, but getting the answer is just going to lead you further in the opposite direction to what you want, and so it'll just take you down to satisfaction, like even if you're asking something like irrelevant. And it's
well, dreaming is what we do. Dreaming is the ordinary state.
Yeah.
Just come into reality. Just wake up, sati. That's the whole practice.
If he's not dreaming, he could just be experiencing the same thing he's experiencing the entire time, right? If it's not dreaming, it's the same thing he's experiencing always. Or you could say that maybe manifestation is different, So like, I don't dream very often. A lot of the time when I dream, big quotes, is just an experience of lack of stimulus. It's just black, right? There's no time. It's just like I could just remember one black moment. So like, that's me remembering a state of being while my body's asleep, I'm not dreaming. I'm remembering the same thing that's happening right now. It's just that it doesn't have the visual stimuli that come from the senses, So yeah, I mean, just because he says he doesn't dream doesn't mean lucid dream essentially means something like the internal reality.
I think it's like a double meaning. It's like a double meaning.
That he's waking up, that he's interested in not dreaming. If he is dreaming, then he's deciding, I don't dream, I wake up. That was the advice that he gave me.
So it's like dreaming is like a metaphor for being
if you find yourself dreaming, what should you do? Wake up. Sati.
Wake up, yeah. You're in that.
I mean, dreaming to us, dreaming usually means that we don't know we're dreaming. Dreaming, within its connotation, we understand that when we dream, for almost everyone, it's an experience of kind of like a movie, right?
Right, but can you have a little bit of, but that's what we're practicing though, is waking up from the dream. That's literally all the practice is. Waking up from the dream over and over and over again. That's our practice. So then that could bleed into when you're sleeping, then even when you're like in a dream, because there must be a little bit of consciousness there, you could have that sati to wake up. And that would
Right.
be a
So
good
if you're
practice to do.
omnipresent in that state, if you're in that state that's omnipresent, you're no longer dreaming. You're no longer losing consciousness and being lost in an illusion or a movie where you have no
Wait,
control.
what? Omnipresent? What does that even mean?
Omnipresent.
Are you sitting
Omnipresent
next to
means it's
Robert right
available at any moment. It's available everywhere for everyone at any time. It's omnipresent.
now? Okay.
So like you just have to explore it to really see what's there. And if you think that omnipresent is something that's reserved for God, that idea that I'm different than God is blocking you from ever being able to experience it. If you just open up and have a little curiosity, like what the fuck does that even mean? Omnipresence? Well, if it's omnipresent, it's got to be in here in me right now. So it's a direction for you to explore. You know, what does omnipresent mean? What is omnipresent? You know?
It just sounds
It's
like
funny,
another
when you-
fire without fuel to
it's
me,
that-
because I don't recognize anything in reality that is actually omnipresent.
Yeah, I think like for me, like when I first heard it, I was expecting something like more exalted, like omniscient or omnipotent, all-knowing or all-powerful. Like it's a really big grand thing. Whereas like omnipresent, like you had a much more mundane definition, which I'm quite glad of. It helped me sort of bring it into my
What are
own
we
sort of
describing
reality
as
that I have experience
omnipresent
with.
again? What is
We're
this
looking
thing
for
that's
something that is omnipresent.
Like happiness, like sukha, because you can always like find it. So it's like omnipresent. I think if I
It
might
would
have
be
misinterpreted
omnipresent
it,
in
I
the
apologize
worst.
if I have.
Yeah.
I could buy that. Like, yeah, whenever you remember, sure. If that's the same
Omnipresent
thing.
would be there in the blackest of sleep. It would be in death. It would be in the nothing. It would be everywhere. It would be in everything. It would be also beyond everything.
Well, we
So
know that that's not the
omnipresent
case
is
for happiness, at least satisfaction, for the thing that matters. That when you don't remember,
that's
that's the old ordinary way. That's the old typical way. That's the old stuff that we were talking about before. That's the not liking being hungry. Until we wake up and remember that we don't have to not like this.
yeah.
That
I mean,
sati
like
is omnipresent. If anything,
It's a different
that
it's
sati
a
is
different
like,
school
okay,
of
well,
thought.
I can remember it.
I think Corey, it's
Still
a different
remember it.
school of thought. Like in like self-inquiry, a lot of self-inquiry schools of thought, the idea is that there is this thing that's like out there and it's like the ultimate realization but it's impossible to know, and it's sort of like finding a needle in a haystack, but the needle is the haystack, and it's like this really impossible task that we have to accomplish with our self-inquiry practice somehow. But that's a very like distinctly different school of thought to I think the one that Dhammarato teaches, which is that forget about the needle in the haystack and just like enjoy the search. And then in the enjoyment of the search, you'll find what you were looking for, really, which was just being happy now. Because like, what did you need enlightenment for? What did you need to become an arhat for? Like, what did you need the next path for? Right? Like, when you can just like enjoy the moment now. Like that's what it was all for anyway. So I think that's sort of like how I interpret like the different schools of thought. Yeah. The now
is
we
omnipresent.
They
always say that awareness or being. Maybe we could even say we could dumb it down and say it's relatively omnipresent. You know, how would we ever know anything unless we had awareness of it? How do we know that we were unconscious and sleeping?
Dependently arriving? You mean it's dependently arising? That's a good word we could use.
Maybe we're looking
would
for what
be
is
more akin to
arising.
like what is dependently arising is arising on a screen of omnipotence. You know, omnipotence is like it's or omnipresent. Sorry, it's everywhere, including in the nothing. You can't understand it with concepts in mind. It's beyond the mind, and so but it's also right now, and so it's everywhere you've ever gone. It's been there everywhere, and maybe that's why it's so hard for people to see. They're like a fish in water. They don't have no idea they're living in water their whole lives. And because they've never experienced something. And this is also probably why it's important to have the Nirodha Samapati or whatever, you know, because suddenly you experience that, like, you know, the absence of what was always omnipresent. And if it's always right. So
yeah, Brandon talks about that a lot. He's a big fan of his cessations. I'm very jealous. I don't think I've ever had a cessation. I really want one though. Sounds great.
Is that? I feel like if Brandon was here, he might have something to say, possibly new, regarding his meditation experiences. But anyways, because we were, I don't know, it seemed
outlandish.
Yeah. Anyways,
It's something that's always there, though. It's a good.
It's not what I was getting at. I was saying that I think that Brandon recognizes that. I mean, I don't need to speak for him, but I'll speak for myself.
Go ahead. No, you can speak for him. You have my permission. I'm a buddy with Brandon. He's my friend.
Being satisfied right now is all that matters.
Right. Would you say that now is omnipresent?
I don't need to be concerned about. I don't need to be concerned about some cessation that I had, last week.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just something interesting to explore, and if we ever touch on something that's omnipresent, it has an experience on us. That's why they, really tout how important it is to have Nirodha Samapatti. If you're able to experience that, what is beyond what we call omnipresence, or just because we don't experience something in Nirodha Samapatti doesn't mean there's nothing there. It means that we can't experience what's there. So just because we can't experience the full depth of omnipotence or omniscience doesn't mean that it's not there. It means that we can't experience it. So just because Nirodha Samapatti seems like the end of the road doesn't mean that it is the end of the road. That is just how it's appearing to us because of the technology that we're using to get there is this human body, this human brain. And, it's not actually that special, if we look at something that is beyond everything else, something that is omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent, it's going to be a little bit more advanced than something that is within it, which would be the universe.
That's really cool. Yeah, you took that in a really interesting direction. Like, it's like a paradox. It's like, what is there something here that isn't just this experience? But if this experience contains everything that's here, because it's like all contained in this omnipresent present moment, like at the most ultimate like sense, like we go all the way meta out, it's just like the present moment. But then it's like, is there something outside of that or inside that? That's kind of like a cool philosophical contemplation. What do you think the practical use of that is, Corey?
There's no practical.
Philosophy
is for people who aren't satisfied, and we could just forget about it and relax.
We could do that if no one here has experienced it, but I have experienced it, so I can talk about it.
Well, you could forget about it and relax too.
I don't think I need to relax. I think you're unrelaxed. That's why you need me to stop talking about it. Hey man, I'm just like it's
about it. Okay. I'm just saying that that's not liberating.
Omnipresence isn't liberating. That's news to me.
It's not the path.
Okay, well, people say omnipresence, other people call it truth. And what Buddha calls is like, if we're going through the illusion, we are going to truth. Truth is always there. Truth is omnipresent. So if we're going into truth, or if we're finding what this thing is that's omnipresent, we are able to see what is illusion, what was never real to begin with. And if that's our concept of self or ego, that's helpful.
Corey, I have a really practical question. Do you think it's worth making yourself suffer now to achieve like the ultimate enlightenment down the road? Like, is it worth like bullying myself and beating myself up to meditate for like the goal of the ultimate enlightenment when I could just feel like happy now instead? Like, is it worth doing that and like sacrificing the present moment for the really good like omnipresent?
What if the being happy now is the enlightenment?
Omnipresent would be now as well.
Right.
What if the other one doesn't exist and the
being
so happy now is all that exists?
So it's like, okay, I think I see what you're saying. Like, the making myself suffer now to like motivate myself for like enlightenment. It's like counterproductive because the dukkha is just gonna obscure me and make my vision like less. It's gonna be less like clear Dhamma eye, like clear things.
What if that
wouldn't be a practice? That wouldn't be what we're going after. If somehow omnipresence like made you suffer in order to get there, that wouldn't be something that we want to practice. That wouldn't be, that wouldn't be worth sharing to other people. So when someone talks to us about omnipresence or truth, something that goes beyond an illusory sense of self being contained to this body, if you actually touch on what is omnipresent, you're not longer tied to your body, at least for the moment or the moment of time that you can experience that unity with what is omnipresent. you're able to kind of see what is illusion, what is bound in time, what is not omnipresent, you know? And if it comes and goes, it's omnipresent.
Yeah. It's kind of, just to like add something to what I said before, it's like there have been like moments in my life where I've really like beat myself up to like do something that was really beneficial for me. And sometimes that was meditating or like reading a book and like sitting down to read instead of like watching watching TV or something that's not contributing to like my spiritual growth. And like instead I'll like read like The Power of Now, like for example, of like a book that I've read, right? So it's like, so I'll make myself suffer for it, but it will actually lead to something good down the road. But you're saying like conclusively like don't do that, or
That's
do it
not
like some
how.
of the
That's
time.
not what's
Like,
happening. That's not what's happening. That's at some point down the road you figure it out that it's time to. That's kind of what I was getting at. If we take a couple steps back to your original question about suffering into
Yeah.
enlightenment or relaxing now and being happy in that enlightenment. What I'm telling you is that the only enlightenment that there is that second one that you gave. That there is no other enlightenment. There's no other way.
I see.
When you read that book, you don't read that book and then suffer, and then because you suffered, you got enlightened. No, you lightened up at some point after suffering a lot. You just remembered.
Yes.
You just had sati at that point.
That's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of
this concept
like
or whatever
like
this thing
Ishan's
is.
school of thought, to be honest. I kind of like that. I feel like
Yeah,
I feel like the final ultimate enlightenment has probably done like more harm than good for me. I mean, it hasn't, but like in the sense that like at this point, like all it is a concept in my mind. Like I might as well just feel
It
happy
also
now.
doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it's just a thought, right? Like
It's your God.
yeah,
If it's a thought,
I'm
it
just
comes and
worshiping a new
goes.
God.
But if it's a thought, it
Instead
comes
of
and
heaven,
goes.
it's
If it's
nirvana.
omnipresent, yeah, like, but that's the thing is like if you don't like practice
Your
how
God is
to
omnipresent,
run
huh?
something,
Just like all the other ones.
I wouldn't call it God because it doesn't. It's not really.
I know you
like
wouldn't call it that because that would defeat your purpose behind what you're trying to say. But that's what I'm seeing in it.
Because you've heard that God is omnipresent.
No, that basically you're putting something you like there's some sort of great enlightenment at the end of the rainbow, and that's kind of the same concept of like in ordinary religions. Whereas I'm inviting you to ride the rainbow happily now, and that be the God.
Yeah.
That is the God.
So one doesn't negate the other, right? If it's omnipresent, it's there in our darkest times. It's there before we're born. It's there in our anapanasati. It's there in our enlightenment. It is everywhere. That is what omnipresent means. And so somehow,
That sounds kind of useless.
like,
though. Like that
it's
sounds kind of
useless
pointless.
to
Because
realize
there in all
omnipresent.
the states and all the bad ones, like it's completely meaningless and pointless. Like that just means it's like nothing. Like that's literally nothing.
Well, there isn't much.
Like
I
I'm
mean, it
sorry if I'm
hasn't-
misunderstanding.
Well, that's maybe that's the whole point. That it is nothing. Maybe that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's not much
Right.
to it.
It's not something that is going
be
to
happy.
like, it's impersonal. It's not
relax.
something that you would go after
Just relax.
in terms of like, because it's a high. You wouldn't be going after omnipresent like it's a goal at the end of the tunnel, right? Because that implies that the now is shitty. But what we're trying to do is,
because we have to,
Yeah.
we can't sacrifice the now to get to the end. We have to focus on the present moment and all of our attention on the present moment to actually
And if you
make the
didn't make
progress
that-
towards the like. Yes, I think I follow. Yeah.
and if you
So
didn't
it's
make
like
the
you're sort of
mistake
like
of doing
having the
it,
light but not
Yeah.
having the light. Yeah.
Uh,
It's like you have to not care
Yeah.
about the goal to get the
you gotta
goal.
find the one with the blue.
right?
Yeah.
We could probably say it's some kind of phenomenon, or it's not phenomenon. I think they call phenomenon as something that comes and goes. So this would be something else. This would be more like a quality of the universe itself, right? It's not something that we think of. It's not something that we do. It's something that's always there. And so it's not a process of getting it. It's not a process of doing anything. It's a process of removal so that we could be with what is there. We could realize what's there. And it's not, I'm not such a master that it's my state all the time and things like that. It's something that is like a tool, if you're able to tap into this, essence or this being or awareness or, whatever
Yes,
that's
yes.
omnipresent, it gives contrast to what like is, what is present, what is coming and going. Or no, it doesn't contrast what is present. It contrasts what is coming and going, what is illusion. And so it does have extreme utility, but it doesn't have a euphoria. Actually, it kind of does have euphoria, but not addictive euphoria. It's not a high. It's more like a bliss. It's a peace. And so it does have utility, and it's not the end goal. You could maybe say the end goal would be something more like omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. So this thing that we're trying to understand more, we're not really trying to understand it. We're trying to experience it in the present moment. And when we experience it, we come out of what is false and illusory. And if that is omnipresent, if it's always there, and we're no longer identified with the self, our identity becomes omnipresent. Our self becomes omnipresent. It goes beyond death and things like that. And I obviously can't say that because I'm still have my own stuff to deal with. But I have experienced things.
Well, it's like 1 in a million people who even like reach like. I'm guessing you're talking about becoming like an arhat or maybe like something even beyond that. But it's like 1 in a million chances, right? So don't feel like bummed out about it. No one else does either. How many people meditate
like
versus like actually achieve like the ultimate?
I don't know about that actually. I mean, I think actually that Westerners have their own. They create and set standards about what they want to call arhat, but the Buddha in the Buddhist time, arhat is just somebody worthy of gifts. So.
Yes. Sorry, I'm using I don't know what, like MCTB fourth path. I probably should have said like it's a very specific, and it came like thousands of years after the actual sutras.
The Washington Seattle Dhamma. That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So but I mean, if it's omnipresent, it's with everyone. It's always there. So it's not somehow locked for a 1 in a million people. And maybe it does only happen to 1 in a million because only 1 in a million has the karma for it. But if it does happen to you, you are able to experience what is beyond you
according
as well.
To something that some guys in Seattle determined. Yeah.
According to something that I have experienced in very limited doses.
I think it's very cool. I think it's a cool concept. I don't reject the possibility. I think that's it's kind of cool. Yeah. I'd like to experience it. I'm a little jealous, Corey. To be honest. That sounds pretty cool.
Can you see that one too, Robert?
I gave it to as a way of like
good enough.
You're able to explore what that concept is. You're able to experience it for yourself. If you had no idea of it, that it's possible, that it's mundane, you would kind of, maybe keep it on the pedestal, and you'd be like, I can never be omnipresent. I could never touch what's omnipresent. That's for arahants and Buddhas and everything else.